Daily life can feel like a small, dimly lit stage play, with predictable characters and well-rehearsed lines. But what if that stage was set within an endless, star-filled universe of uncharted possibilities? Just as a single dream can reveal hidden depths of the unconscious, transcendent experiences can unlock realities far beyond the ordinary. For millennia, humanity has sought to understand this connection between the mundane and the extraordinary, a quest that has led to diverse explorations of consciousness and the very nature of reality. The roots of this quest can be traced back to ancient mystery schools, such as the Eleusinian mysteries in ancient Greece, where initiates sought transformative experiences through ritual, symbolism, and altered states of consciousness. Driven by a deep yearning for connection with the divine, they explored the hidden realms of the psyche, seeking to unlock the secrets of life, death, and rebirth. It was Carl Jung, grappling with the complexities of the human psyche, who illuminated the concept of archetypes, these primordial patterns that shape our thoughts, feelings, and experiences. Throughout history, across cultures and traditions, humans have wrestled with the fundamental question of meaning, connection, and purpose. This deep-seated yearning has driven us to explore the inner landscape through myth, religion, philosophy, and even art. Yet, in our modern world, bombarded by distractions and demands, it's easy to lose touch with this inner compass, with the quiet wisdom that resides within. This disconnection can leave us feeling adrift, searching for meaning in a world that often seems to offer only fleeting, superficial answers. Given these challenges to accessing our authentic selves, how can we learn to discern the whispers of the unconscious from the noise of the external world? This exploration will delve into the world of archetypes, revealing how these powerful, primordial patterns shape our lives, and how, by understanding them, we can begin to rewrite our own stories. By immersing yourself in this exploration, you won't just learn about archetypes. You'll learn to recognize them in your own life, understand their influence, and begin to consciously shape the narrative of your own becoming. So, let's embark on this exploration of transcendent experience and discover the transformative power that lies hidden within our own vulnerabilities. Let's explore what happens when the familiar boundaries of our awareness dissolve, when we glimpse something beyond the ordinary. Have you ever experienced a moment of such profound beauty or insight that time seemed to stand still, and your sense of self faded into the background? These glimpses beyond the everyday, these transcendent experiences, offer a tantalizing hint of realities beyond our normal waking consciousness. But what are these experiences, really? And what can they tell us about the nature of the human mind and the potential for profound personal transformation? Transcendent experience can be broadly defined as a state of consciousness that goes beyond normal, everyday awareness. Imagine the difference between simply looking at a sunset and being completely absorbed by its radiant beauty, feeling a deep sense of connection to the universe, and perhaps even experiencing a profound insight about your place in the cosmos. This shift in perspective, this feeling of unity and interconnectedness, is at the heart of transcendent experience. Key characteristics often include an altered sense of time, space, and self. Time may seem to speed up, slow down, or even disappear altogether. The boundaries of space may become blurred, leading to feelings of expansion and limitlessness. The sense of self, that constant inner narrative that defines our identity, may temporarily diminish or dissolve, replaced by a sense of unity with all things. These experiences are often accompanied by feelings of awe, wonder, and even mystical or spiritual insights. But it is important to understand that there are different kinds of transcendent experiences. Mystical experiences, often cultivated through practices like meditation and prayer, tend to be gradual and contemplative in nature, fostering a deep sense of inner peace and connection to the divine. Near-death experiences, on the other hand, are often sudden and intense, involving profound visions, encounters with deceased loved ones, and a sense of being bathed in unconditional love. Peak experiences, as described by Abraham Maslow, are moments of intense joy, creativity, or fulfillment that arise spontaneously in everyday life. Psychedelic experiences, induced by substances like psilocybin or LSD, can range from profound spiritual insights to terrifying ego dissolution, depending on the individual, the substance, and the setting. Across cultures and religions, transcendent experiences have been interpreted in diverse ways. Shamanic practices, for example, rely heavily on altered states of consciousness, achieved through drumming, chanting, and plant medicines, to access spiritual realms for healing and guidance. Ancient mystery schools, such as the Eleusinian Mysteries, used ritual and symbolism to induce transformative experiences in initiates. So, while the experience itself may be universal, its interpretation is often shaped by cultural and religious beliefs. This brings us to the question of what is happening in the brain during these extraordinary states. One key element in many transcendent experiences is ego dissolution, the temporary diminishing or dissolving of the sense of self. Think about how, during deep meditation, the constant chatter of the mind begins to quiet down, and the sense of being a separate, isolated individual fades away, replaced by a feeling of merging with the present moment. This quieting of the ego is thought to be linked to changes in the activity of the default mode network, DMN, in the brain. The DMN is a network of brain regions that is most active when we are engaged in self-referential thought, such as daydreaming, worrying about the future, or reflecting on the past. Research has shown that DMN activity tends to decrease during meditation and psychedelic experiences, suggesting that a quieting of the ego is associated with a reduction in self-referential thought. Furthermore, neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine also play a crucial role in facilitating altered states of consciousness. Psychedelic substances, for example, exert their effects by binding to serotonin receptors in the brain, leading to profound changes in perception, cognition, and emotion. But here's what most people miss. The brain is not simply a passive recipient of these experiences. The concept of neuroplasticity suggests that the brain can be rewired and reorganized in response to new experiences. This means that transcendent experiences, particularly when integrated and consolidated through practices like meditation and therapy, can lead to lasting changes in personality, worldview, and overall well-being. Repeated meditation practice, for example, has been shown to lead to changes in brain structure and function, promoting greater emotional regulation, self-awareness, and compassion. Throughout history, individuals from diverse backgrounds have reported transformative transcendent experiences that have profoundly shaped their lives and teachings. Take, for example, the story of Teresa of Avila, a 16th century Spanish mystic who described her mystical visions in vivid detail. She spoke of experiencing a profound sense of union with God, a feeling of being completely enveloped in divine love. These experiences had a profound impact on her life, inspiring her to reform the Carmelite order and become one of the most influential figures in the history of Christian mysticism. Consider also contemporary examples of individuals who have undergone transformative transcendent experiences, such as those who have had near-death experiences. Many near-death experiencers report profound insights about the nature of life, death, and the universe, often returning with a renewed sense of purpose, a diminished fear of death, and a deep sense of connection to something larger than themselves. Similarly, many individuals who have used psychedelic substances in a responsible and intentional way have reported profound insights and personal growth, overcoming limiting beliefs, healing emotional wounds, and gaining a new appreciation for the beauty and interconnectedness of life. But despite the diversity of these accounts, certain common themes and motifs emerge. Feelings of love, compassion, forgiveness, and a sense of connection to something larger than oneself are frequently reported. The recurring motif of encountering a divine being or experiencing a sense of unconditional love is also common. However, it's important to acknowledge the potential challenges and risks associated with seeking or undergoing transcendent experiences. Psychological distress, disorientation, and integration difficulties can occur, particularly in the context of psychedelic use. Responsible set and setting are crucial when using psychedelics, and integration support is often needed after transformative experiences. So, where does this leave us? How do we navigate the landscape of transcendent experience in a way that promotes genuine growth and integration, rather than escapism or delusion? What is the role of our shadow? And are we all equally inclined toward these types of experiences? But there's another piece to this puzzle, the shadow. But does everyone experience transcendence in the same way and with the same ease? Is it possible that some personalities are simply more inclined to go beyond the ordinary? While it's tempting to think of transcendent experiences as universally accessible, like a switch that anyone can flip, the reality is often more nuanced. Just as some individuals are naturally drawn to artistic expression or athletic pursuits, others may be predisposed to seek out or experience altered states of consciousness. But before we jump to conclusions, it's crucial to remember that this isn't about labeling people or suggesting that some are better at transcendence than others. Instead, let's explore the idea that certain personality traits might create a fertile ground for these extraordinary experiences, acknowledging the interplay of both nature and nurture in shaping our inner landscape. While anyone, in theory, can have a transcendent experience, some personalities may be more naturally inclined to seek them out or even interpret ordinary experiences as transcendent. Consider, for example, the difference between two people witnessing the same sunset. One might simply appreciate the visual beauty, while the other might feel a profound sense of connection to the universe, a merging of self and cosmos. This isn't to say that one experience is superior, but rather that different personalities may perceive and interpret the same event in fundamentally different ways. It's like the distinction between introversion and extroversion. Both types can enjoy social interaction, but extroverts may actively seek it out, while introverts may find it more draining. Similarly, some personalities may be more naturally drawn to the inner exploration and altered states that characterize transcendent experience. However, it's important to state that this exploration is not about deterministic labeling, but rather the attempt to create a useful model for understanding what personality types may be more open to these experiences. So, what specific personality traits might be linked to a greater openness to transcendent experience? One compelling connection lies with the Big Five personality trait of openness to experience. Individuals high in openness tend to be more curious, imaginative, and receptive to new ideas, sensations, and perspectives. They often have a deep appreciation for art, music, and nature, and are more willing to explore unconventional beliefs and practices. This inherent curiosity and willingness to step outside the bounds of conventional thinking can make them more likely to seek out or be receptive to transcendent experiences. Furthermore, we might consider the connection between Jungian personality types and a greater interest in spirituality and symbolism. Individuals with a dominant intuitive function, for example, may be more drawn to abstract concepts, mystical traditions, and exploring the deeper meaning of life. They may be more comfortable with ambiguity and more willing to embrace the irrational and the numinous. Another significant trait is absorption, the ability to become fully immersed in sensory or imaginative experiences. Those high in absorption may be more prone to entering altered states of consciousness through meditation, music, or even simply being in nature. Imagine someone listening to a piece of music and feeling completely transported to another world, losing all sense of self and time. This capacity for deep immersion can be a gateway to transcendent experiences. However, it's crucial to acknowledge the shadow side of this equation. For certain personality types, a yearning for transcendence may be a form of escapism, a way to avoid dealing with the challenges and complexities of everyday life. Consider those who misuse drugs or spirituality to numb themselves to trauma, using altered states as a temporary refuge from pain rather than as a path to genuine growth and integration. This form of self-medication can be particularly dangerous, leading to further psychological distress and a disconnection from reality. This highlights the importance of approaching transcendent experiences with awareness, intention, and a willingness to confront one's own shadow aspects. Now, what does the research show in regards to correlations? Indeed, studies in psychology have explored the relationship between personality traits, spirituality, and mystical experiences. Research has shown a correlation between openness to experience and scores on scales measuring mystical experiences or spiritual well-being. As one example, studies on the psychological effects of mindfulness meditation have noted how it can cultivate traits like openness, acceptance, and non-judgment, which may facilitate transcendent experiences. These studies have shown that meditation can lead to increased activity in brain regions associated with empathy and compassion, suggesting that cultivating these qualities may pave the way for deeper, more meaningful transcendent states. Consider also anecdotal evidence and case studies of individuals with specific personality profiles who have reported transformative transcendent experiences. One anonymized case study tells of an individual high in openness who found profound meaning and insight through psychedelic-assisted therapy, overcoming limiting beliefs and gaining a new appreciation for the interconnectedness of all things. But here's what most people miss. The belief that one is about to have a transcendent experience may, in itself, lead to having one. In controlled trials, some people within the control group who had no active drug still believed they were having transcendental experiences, demonstrating the impact of expectancy on subjective experience. To summarize, certain personality traits, such as openness, intuition, and a capacity for absorption, may be associated with a greater likelihood of seeking or being receptive to transcendent experiences. But personality is not destiny, and anyone can cultivate qualities that foster openness and receptivity. Practices like meditation, mindfulness, and self-reflection can help individuals of all personality types connect with their inner experience and explore the potential for transcendence. It is important to acknowledge the potential for confirmation bias and self-fulfilling prophecies in interpreting experiences based on pre-existing personality traits. Individuals high in openness, for example, may be more likely to interpret ordinary experiences as transcendent, even if they are not objectively so. Now that we've explored the role of personality, let's turn our attention to the various methods people use to access these extraordinary states of consciousness, and how they can shape the nature of transcendent experiences. Now that we've explored the role of personality in the inclination towards transcendent experiences, let's turn our attention to the various methods people have used throughout history to access these extraordinary states of consciousness. From ancient rituals performed under the light of the moon to technologically assisted therapies in modern clinical settings, the spectrum of practices designed to induce transcendence is vast and varied. Is it possible that the path to the divine is as diverse as humanity itself? The effectiveness and safety of these practices can vary greatly depending on individual factors, cultural context, and perhaps most importantly, intention. What resonates deeply with one person may prove ineffective or even harmful to another. A rigorous meditation retreat might bring profound insight to one individual, while another could find it a breeding ground for anxiety and self-doubt. Similarly, while some might find healing and connection through shamanic ceremonies, others may experience trauma or disorientation. Like a skilled craftsman selecting the right tool for the job, finding the appropriate practice requires careful consideration and a deep understanding of oneself. These considerations are vital to keep in mind before delving deeper. We can broadly categorize these practices into 4 groups: contemplative, physical, ritualistic, and pharmacological. Contemplative practices, such as meditation and mindfulness, focus on cultivating inner awareness and quieting the mind. Physical practices, like yoga and ecstatic dance, utilize movement and embodied experience to alter consciousness. Ritualistic practices, including shamanism and ceremonial traditions, employ symbolic actions and altered states to connect with the spiritual realm. Pharmacological practices, such as the use of psychedelics and entheogens, involve ingesting substances that alter perception and cognition. Each category offers a unique pathway to transcendence, with its own set of techniques, challenges, and potential rewards. However, the definition of practice extends beyond formal techniques. Lifestyle choices and mindset can also play a significant role in shaping our capacity for transcendent experience. Practices such as fasting, celibacy, or prolonged solitude, often undertaken in monastic traditions, may create conditions conducive to altered states of consciousness. Similarly, a commitment to selfless service, a deep immersion in nature, or the cultivation of artistic expression can all serve as pathways to transcendence, blurring the line between deliberate practice and a way of life. Does this mean that transcendence is available to everyone, regardless of their background or beliefs? Let's begin by exploring meditation and mindfulness, two contemplative practices that have gained widespread popularity in recent years. These practices cultivate attention, awareness, and emotional regulation, allowing individuals to observe their thoughts and feelings without judgment. Through consistent practice, meditators can reduce activity in the default mode network, the brain region associated with self-referential thinking, and cultivate a sense of present moment awareness. Imagine sitting in stillness, watching your thoughts arise and pass like clouds in the sky, without getting carried away by their stories. This simple act of observation can open the door to profound insights and a sense of connection to something larger than oneself. What then are the neurobiological underpinnings of this? Shamanism and ritualistic practices offer a different approach, utilizing altered states of consciousness for healing, divination, and spiritual connection. Shamanic drumming, chanting, and journeying can induce altered states of consciousness, allowing practitioners to communicate with spirits or archetypal forces. These rituals often involve symbolic actions, such as dancing around a fire or creating sacred art, which serve to focus intention and create a sense of shared experience. Consider the image of a shaman entering a trance state, guided by the rhythm of the drum and traveling to other realms to seek guidance for their community. This ancient practice highlights the power of ritual and altered states to access hidden dimensions of reality. Is this, perhaps, a route to the archetypes? The use of psychedelics and entheogens represents another distinct approach to inducing transcendent experiences. These substances can disrupt normal patterns of thought and perception, leading to novel insights and transformative experiences. Psychedelics can temporarily dissolve the boundaries of the ego, allowing individuals to experience a sense of unity with the universe or encounter profound spiritual truths. Imagine experiencing the world through a kaleidoscope, where familiar objects take on new and unexpected forms, and the boundaries between self and other blur. While these substances can be powerful tools for exploration, they also carry significant risks. It is crucial to acknowledge the risks associated with all of these practices. Contemplative practices can lead to the dark night of the soul, a period of intense emotional turmoil and spiritual crisis. Shamanic journeys can be traumatizing if not undertaken with proper guidance and preparation. Psychedelics can trigger adverse psychological reactions, particularly in individuals with pre-existing mental health conditions. Thus, responsible set and setting, integration support, and ethical considerations are paramount when engaging in these practices. What may seem like a shortcut to enlightenment can easily become a path to disillusionment if approached without caution and respect. Consider, for example, the case of an individual who overcame trauma through mindfulness meditation. After years of struggling with anxiety and flashbacks, this person learned to cultivate present moment awareness through consistent meditation practice. By observing their thoughts and feelings without judgment, they gradually developed a greater sense of emotional regulation and self-compassion. Over time, they were able to process their trauma and find a sense of peace and healing. Research studies have also shown that long-term meditation practice can lead to increased gray matter in brain regions associated with attention and emotional regulation, providing further evidence for the transformative potential of these practices. This may not be a one-size-fits-all solution, though. Similarly, research has explored the effects of psychedelics on mental health. Studies have shown that psilocybin-assisted therapy can be effective in treating depression, anxiety, and addiction by promoting neuroplasticity and facilitating emotional breakthroughs. However, it is important to acknowledge that these studies are still in their early stages, and that psychedelics are not a panacea for all psychological ills. The importance of intention, expectation, and context in shaping the outcomes of these practices cannot be overstated. The placebo effect, for example, can significantly influence the perceived effectiveness of a practice, and cultural beliefs and expectations can shape the interpretation of experiences. Some people may find one practice more naturally agreeable or easily accessible, while others do not. In essence, there is no one right way to induce transcendent experiences. The key is to find the practice that resonates most deeply with your individual needs, values, and personality, and to approach it with intention, awareness, and respect. However, what are the ethical considerations related to the use of these practices, particularly in the context of psychedelic use and shamanic tourism? The use of practices, in particular shamanic tourism and the use of psychedelics, carries significant ethical considerations. Informed consent, cultural sensitivity, and responsible integration are all paramount. Avoid seeking transcendent experiences solely for the sake of novelty or excitement, without a genuine intention for personal growth and ethical behavior. One must be extremely cautious against the potential for misuse or abuse of these practices, such as using them for escapism, self-aggrandizement, or manipulation. But now that we've explored the various paths to transcendence, let's turn our attention to the crucial task of integrating these experiences into our daily lives and relationships. Now that we've explored the various paths to transcendence, can these extraordinary glimpses of heightened awareness truly be sustained amidst the ordinary landscapes of our daily lives? The challenge, perhaps the ultimate test, lies in bridging the profound insights gained in those peak moments with the often mundane realities of work, relationships, and the ever-present demands of everyday existence. To neglect this integration is to risk the experience fading into a distant memory, a fleeting glimpse of something extraordinary that ultimately fails to transform the way we live. The integration of transcendent experiences is far from a straightforward process, fraught with potential pitfalls that can hinder rather than help our journey toward wholeness. One common pitfall is the idealization of the experience itself, where the individual becomes fixated on recreating that heightened state of awareness, leading to disillusionment with ordinary reality. The world, once vibrant with possibility, may now seem dull and unsatisfying in comparison to the remembered intensity of the transcendent moment. This, as Jung might observe, can lead to a dangerous disconnection from the here and now, a perpetual striving for an unattainable ideal that leaves the individual perpetually dissatisfied. Can this lead to a rejection of the physical form? Furthermore, individuals may struggle to translate the insights gained during transcendent experiences into concrete actions and sustainable lifestyle changes. A profound sense of interconnectedness and compassion, so vivid during the experience, can quickly fade when faced with everyday stressors and conflicts. The desire to live in accordance with these values may be met with resistance from ingrained habits, societal pressures, or simply the overwhelming feeling that it's just too difficult to make a real difference. As such, it is here we begin to find the true struggle towards enlightenment and begin to realize that true enlightenment may not even exist. This is where the concept of grounding or anchoring becomes essential. Grounding refers to the practice of consciously connecting with the physical body, the present moment, and the everyday world. It's about finding ways to embody the insights and values gained during transcendent experiences, making them a tangible part of our daily lives. Without grounding, transcendent experiences can remain abstract and disconnected, failing to take root and transform our behavior in a lasting way. If these extraordinary experiences are not connected to the physical realm, can they even be considered real? Mindfulness and meditation offer powerful tools for cultivating present moment awareness and emotional regulation, helping to bridge the gap between transcendent experiences and daily life. Regular mindfulness practice allows individuals to observe their thoughts and feelings without judgment, creating a space of calm awareness from which to respond to challenges and stressors. By training the mind to stay present, we can learn to access the wisdom and compassion that arose during transcendent experiences, even in the midst of difficult situations. This is, essentially, emotional alchemy, turning base emotions into gold. Gratitude practices, such as journaling or expressing appreciation to others, provide another avenue for fostering a sense of connection and meaning in everyday life. By consciously focusing on the positive aspects of our lives, we cultivate a sense of gratitude and contentment, even when faced with difficulties. This practice helps us to remember the interconnectedness and love that we may have experienced during transcendent moments, reinforcing those values in our daily interactions. A simple thank you, offered with genuine feeling, can be a powerful act of integration. Is it possible to find this gratitude within ourselves? Creative expression, such as art, music, or writing, offers a unique way to translate transcendent insights and emotions into tangible forms. Creating art can be a way of processing and integrating profound experiences, allowing individuals to express what they may not be able to put into words. The act of creation can also be a form of meditation, focusing our attention and allowing us to tap into our inner source of inspiration and wisdom. Jung, in his own practice of active imagination, understood the transformative power of engaging with the unconscious through creative expression. This can be seen as a form of catharsis. Embodiment practices, such as yoga, dance, or spending time in nature, reconnect us with the physical body and cultivate a sense of presence. Movement and sensory experiences help us ground ourselves in the present moment and feel more connected to our bodies. These practices can be particularly helpful for individuals who have experienced a sense of disembodiment or dissociation during transcendent experiences. Feeling the earth beneath our feet, the sun on our skin, the rhythm of our breath, these are all ways of anchoring ourselves in the here and now. What happens when we lose this connection with nature? Consider, for instance, the case of a woman who struggled with anxiety and depression after a transformative psychedelic experience. Overwhelmed by the intensity of the experience and unable to make sense of the insights she gained, she found herself feeling more lost and disconnected than ever before. Through the guidance of a therapist trained in integration, she began to practice mindfulness meditation and creative expression. Slowly, she learned to observe her thoughts and feelings without judgment, and to express her emotions through painting and writing. Over time, she was able to process her experience, integrate its insights into her life, and find a renewed sense of purpose and meaning. Is this a path to wholeness? Another example is of a man who started a non-profit organization to address social inequality after having a profound mystical experience. Moved by a deep sense of interconnectedness and compassion, he felt compelled to take action to alleviate the suffering of others. He spent months researching the root causes of inequality, building relationships with community leaders, and developing a sustainable plan for creating positive change. Through his dedication and hard work, he was able to translate his transcendent values into concrete actions, making a tangible difference in the lives of those around him. This shows the power of acting for the betterment of the collective. Finding a supportive community or network of like-minded individuals is also crucial for successful integration. Support groups and integration circles provide a safe and nurturing space for individuals to share their experiences, receive guidance, and connect with others who understand what they are going through. These communities can offer a sense of belonging, validation, and encouragement, helping individuals to navigate the challenges of integration with greater ease and resilience. This network can be essential for growth. However, it is important to acknowledge the perspective of spiritual emergency, where integration is a long and potentially difficult process. Spiritual emergency refers to a state of psychological distress that arises during or after a spiritual experience, often involving intense emotions, altered perceptions, and challenges to one's sense of self. In these cases, professional support from a therapist or counselor trained in transpersonal psychology can be invaluable. How can one know when a spiritual experience has devolved into a spiritual emergency? In essence, integrating transcendent experiences into everyday life requires a conscious and ongoing commitment to embodiment, mindfulness, and creative expression. It is a process that demands patience, self-compassion, and a willingness to embrace the challenges that arise along the way. By grounding ourselves in the present moment, cultivating gratitude, and expressing our insights through creative channels, we can begin to bridge the gap between the extraordinary and the ordinary, creating a life that reflects our deepest values. This all requires extreme focus. The long-term vision is to create a life that embodies transcendent values, such as compassion, empathy, and interconnectedness, not just in isolated moments, but as a consistent and unwavering way of being. This involves making conscious choices in our relationships, our work, and our actions in the world that align with these values. It means treating ourselves and others with kindness and respect, striving to make a positive impact on our communities, and living in harmony with the earth. And it means remembering the core values you established early in life. It is important to note that the integration process may involve challenges and setbacks, and that self-compassion and resilience are essential qualities to cultivate. There will be times when we feel discouraged, confused, or overwhelmed by the demands of everyday life. It is normal to experience doubts, fears, and difficulties along the way, and seeking support from others can be incredibly helpful during these times. By embracing these challenges as opportunities for growth, we can strengthen our commitment to living a life of purpose and meaning. Can we learn to love the difficult times? Now that we've explored the path of integration, what is the ultimate purpose of seeking transcendent experiences, and how can we ensure that they lead to a more meaningful and fulfilling life? As we continue our exploration of transcendence, a challenging yet vital concept emerges: the dark night of the soul. But what exactly is this dark night, and why is it so crucial to the spiritual journey? It is not simply a bout of clinical depression, but rather a profound and transformative phase of spiritual purification and growth, a necessary stripping away of old beliefs and attachments to make way for a deeper understanding of self and the divine. Think of a caterpillar entering its chrysalis. To the outside observer, it appears as though the creature is dying or has entered a dormant state. However, within that seemingly lifeless shell, a radical transformation is taking place, a complete restructuring of the caterpillar's being into something entirely new and wondrous. Similarly, the dark night of the soul is a period of intense inner turmoil and apparent stagnation, during which old structures of meaning and identity dissolve, paving the way for a more authentic and integrated self to emerge. Could this process be essential for our own metamorphosis? The experience of the dark night is not limited to any one culture or time period. It is a widespread and recurring phenomenon, a universal aspect of the human spiritual journey. Periods of spiritual crisis are found in Buddhism. Initiatory trials are present in shamanic practices, and in some indigenous cultures, one must experience a similar darkness to be considered an elder. Reframing these personal struggles as part of a greater, universal process can offer solace and perspective, reminding us that we are not alone in our suffering. Can understanding its universality ease the burden? The characteristics of the dark night of the soul are often intense and disorienting. Feelings of hopelessness, meaninglessness, isolation, and a profound loss of faith or purpose. The individual may feel utterly abandoned by the divine, adrift in a sea of uncertainty and despair. The familiar landmarks of their spiritual landscape disappear, leaving them feeling lost and without direction. It's as if the light has gone out, leaving only darkness and confusion. But how does this differ from clinical depression? Unlike clinical depression, which can stem from a variety of factors, including biological and psychological causes, the dark night of the soul arises specifically within a spiritual context. While it may share some symptoms with depression, such as sadness and loss of interest, it is distinguished by a profound sense of spiritual emptiness and a yearning for something beyond the material world. It is also marked by the potential for eventual growth and transformation, a sense that this darkness, however painful, is ultimately serving a higher purpose. Could the higher purpose only be obvious in hindsight? The dark night of the soul often unfolds in distinct stages. The initial stage may involve disillusionment, a shattering of old beliefs and assumptions about the nature of reality. This can lead to a detachment from previously held values and attachments, as the individual begins to question everything they once held dear. Finally, this all leads to a surrender to the unknown, a willingness to let go of control and trust in the unfolding process, even when it makes no sense. In this surrender, this letting go, there can be a path forward. Can we truly surrender without understanding what we are surrendering to? This challenging period can be triggered by a variety of factors, such as major life changes, spiritual awakenings, or confrontations with the shadow self. The loss of a loved one, a career crisis, or a sudden shift in perspective can all initiate a dark night of the soul. As we discussed earlier, integrating repressed aspects of the personality, confronting our shadow self, can also trigger a period of intense self-doubt and questioning as we grapple with the darker aspects of our nature. The greater the shadow, the darker the night. Throughout history, countless individuals have written about or experienced the dark night of the soul, offering guidance and inspiration to those who follow in their footsteps. Mystics, saints, and spiritual teachers across traditions have described this challenging terrain, illuminating the path through darkness and toward eventual enlightenment. Their stories remind us that the dark night is not an end in itself, but a necessary passage on the journey toward wholeness. Can we find guidance in their words? Consider, for instance, the words of St. John of the Cross, who wrote extensively about the dark night of the soul in his seminal work of the Saint Name. St. John of the Cross writes, "In this dark night, the soul goes out of itself. It knows not how, nor can it tell." He describes the soul's experience of spiritual dryness, emptiness, and longing for God, a sense of being utterly lost and abandoned in the darkness. Yet, he also emphasizes the transformative potential of this experience, arguing that it is through this very darkness that the soul is purified and prepared for union with the divine. Is it only through complete loss that we can truly find ourselves? Similar themes of surrender, perseverance, and eventual breakthrough can be found in other traditions as well. The Buddha's period of intense asceticism and self-denial before his enlightenment, the trials of prophets in various religious texts, and the initiatory ordeals of shamans all reflect the universal experience of confronting darkness and emerging stronger on the other side. These stories highlight the importance of resilience, faith, and a willingness to endure suffering in the pursuit of spiritual growth. It is through these struggles that we find enlightenment. Consider, for example, the anonymized case of a contemporary individual who lost their faith and meaning after experiencing a traumatic event. Initially, they felt abandoned and lost, unable to find solace in their previous beliefs. However, through a process of spiritual exploration and community involvement, they gradually found a renewed sense of purpose and meaning, discovering a deeper connection to something greater than themselves. This individual found light in the darkness. These experiences, although sharing similarities with clinical depression, often differ in subtle but significant ways. For instance, individuals undergoing a dark night of the soul may still be able to appreciate beauty or retain a sense of hope, even amidst their challenges. They may experience moments of profound insight or connection, glimpses of light in the darkness that sustain them through the most difficult times. Perhaps there is hope even in the darkness. In essence, the dark night of the soul is a challenging but ultimately necessary phase in the spiritual journey, leading to a deeper understanding of self and a more authentic connection with the divine. By embracing the darkness, surrendering to the unknown, and persevering through the trials, we can emerge stronger, wiser, and more fully alive. However, now that we've explored the nature of the dark night of the soul, let's turn our attention to the crucial task of navigating this challenging experience and emerging stronger and wiser on the other side. As we journey deeper into the mysteries of transcendence, keep in mind that the personality factors we discussed earlier may influence one's journey through the dark night, but are not deterministic. How can we cultivate resilience and find meaning in the midst of suffering? And how can we use the dark night of the soul as an opportunity for profound personal growth? We will address this in our upcoming exploration of the tools that can assist us during the dark night, and how to know when this night is coming to an end. As we navigate the challenging terrain of transcendent experiences, particularly during the dark night of the soul, it's crucial to recognize that resilience is not merely an innate trait, but rather a collection of skills and practices we can develop and strengthen over time. What if resilience wasn't a fixed characteristic, but something more akin to a muscle growing stronger with each challenge, each moment of adversity? Framing resilience in this way shifts our perspective from a passive acceptance of our limitations to an active cultivation of our inner resources. Think of resilience as a muscle that grows stronger with use. Just as a weightlifter gradually increases the weight they lift, we can gradually build our capacity to withstand and recover from life's challenges. This contrasts sharply with a fixed mindset, where we believe our abilities and traits are unchangeable. By adopting a growth mindset, we open ourselves to the possibility of developing greater resilience, even in the face of seemingly insurmountable obstacles. But how can we begin to cultivate this inner strength, especially when grappling with the darkness within? A key component of resilience is self-compassion, the ability to treat oneself with kindness, care, and understanding, especially during times of difficulty or suffering. Self-compassion involves recognizing one's own suffering, extending kindness towards oneself, and recognizing one's shared humanity. It's about acknowledging that we are not alone in our struggles, that imperfection is a universal human experience, and that we deserve to be treated with the same compassion we would offer a dear friend. But what does this look like in practice? Imagine you've made a mistake, perhaps a significant one that has caused harm to yourself or others. Instead of engaging in self-criticism or judgment, self-compassion invites you to pause and acknowledge your pain. You might say to yourself, "This is a difficult moment, and I'm feeling hurt and disappointed. May I be kind to myself in this moment. May I give myself the compassion I need." This simple act of self-compassion can buffer against the negative effects of the dark night of the soul, allowing you to process your emotions with greater ease and move forward with greater resilience. Could self-compassion be the antidote to the self-inflicted wounds of the dark night? Realistic optimism also plays a crucial role in fostering resilience. This isn't about blind positivity or ignoring the challenges and difficulties we face. Rather, it's about maintaining a sense of hope and possibility while acknowledging the realities of our situation. Realistic optimism allows us to see the potential for growth and transformation, even in the midst of suffering, while still remaining grounded in the present moment. How does this differ from simply being positive? Consider the difference between realistic optimism and blind positivity. Blind positivity might involve ignoring negative emotions and focusing solely on the bright side, even when facing significant challenges. In contrast, realistic optimism acknowledges the presence of negative emotions and difficulties, but maintains a sense of hope and possibility, focusing on solutions and potential for growth. For instance, someone experiencing a job loss might acknowledge the stress and uncertainty of the situation, but also maintain a belief in their ability to find new employment and even discover new opportunities. Is it possible to practice realistic optimism without minimizing genuine pain? It's important to acknowledge that resilience isn't about never falling, but about how quickly you recover. The dark night experience can knock you down, but your inner resources can help you get back up. We can cultivate self-compassion and realistic optimism to promote a faster and healthier recovery. In the end, how long can you stay in the darkness before actively pursuing the light? Self-compassion, then, emerges as a powerful way of relating to oneself with kindness, care, and understanding, especially during times of difficulty or suffering. Instead of responding to our pain with self-criticism or judgment, self-compassion invites us to treat ourselves as we would treat a dear friend who is going through a tough time. But how can we cultivate this sense of self-compassion in our daily lives? Imagine a close friend is struggling with a difficult situation, perhaps a relationship breakup or a professional setback. You would likely offer them words of comfort, support, and understanding, reminding them of their strengths and offering to help in any way you can. Self-compassion invites us to extend that same kindness and understanding to ourselves, recognizing that we, too, deserve to be treated with care and respect, especially when we are suffering. Should we not treat ourselves the way we treat others? Self-care practices are essential in cultivating self-compassion and resilience. These practices involve nurturing our physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being, providing us with the resources we need to navigate life's challenges with greater ease. Engaging in activities that bring us joy and relaxation, such as spending time in nature, listening to music, practicing yoga, or engaging in creative expression, can help us recharge our batteries and cultivate a greater sense of inner peace. But what specific actions can we take to implement self-care during a dark night? Consider the benefits of spending time in nature. A walk in the woods, a visit to the beach, or simply sitting in a park can have a profound impact on our well-being, reducing stress, boosting our mood, and connecting us to something larger than ourselves. Similarly, listening to music, practicing yoga, or engaging in creative expression can provide us with an outlet for our emotions, allowing us to process our experiences and cultivate greater self-awareness. Are these methods of self-care merely distractions, or do they hold greater transformative power? Perfectionism can be a significant obstacle to self-compassion, especially during a dark night. When we hold ourselves to unrealistic standards, we set ourselves up for feelings of inadequacy and failure, making it even more difficult to navigate the challenges we face. During a spiritual crisis, this can manifest as feeling that our faith is not strong enough if we are struggling, leading to further self-criticism and despair. Is faith truly about unwavering strength, or is it about embracing our vulnerabilities? One may feel that their faith is not strong enough if they're struggling. They may believe that a true believer wouldn't experience such doubt or pain. However, this perfectionistic view of faith can be incredibly damaging, leading to feelings of shame and isolation. It's important to remember that questioning, doubting, and even losing faith are all natural parts of the spiritual journey, and that it's through these experiences that we can develop a deeper and more authentic understanding of ourselves and the divine. Can vulnerability be a strength in faith? It is crucial to acknowledge that self-compassion can be difficult. Some may interpret it as self-pity, believing that it involves indulging in negative emotions or making excuses for our shortcomings. However, self-compassion is not about wallowing in self-pity. It's about acknowledging our pain with kindness and understanding without judgment or self-criticism. It's about recognizing that we are worthy of love and compassion, even when we make mistakes or fall short of our expectations. How can we distinguish between healthy self-compassion and self-pity? Several evidence-based practices can help us cultivate self-compassion, such as mindfulness meditation, loving kindness meditation, and self-compassion breaks. These practices cultivate greater self-awareness, acceptance, and kindness. But how do these practices work, and what specific benefits do they offer? Mindfulness meditation involves paying attention to our thoughts, feelings, and sensations without judgment, allowing us to observe our experiences with greater clarity and acceptance. Loving kindness meditation involves cultivating feelings of warmth, compassion, and acceptance towards ourselves and others, radiating these feelings outward like ripples in a pond. Self-compassion breaks involve pausing during times of difficulty to offer ourselves words of comfort, support, and understanding, reminding ourselves that we are not alone in our suffering. Let's try a brief guided meditation exercise. Close your eyes and take a few deep breaths. Notice the sensations in your body, the rise and fall of your chest, the gentle flow of air in and out of your nostrils. Now, bring to mind a situation that is causing you distress. Acknowledge the pain and discomfort you are feeling. Gently place your hand over your heart and offer yourself these words of comfort. May I be kind to myself in this moment. May I give myself the compassion I need. May I accept myself as I am. Repeat these phrases several times, allowing the warmth of self-compassion to fill your heart. You can practice this daily for a few moments or as needed. Can one truly learn self-compassion from a guided meditation? Research studies have demonstrated the psychological benefits of self-compassion, such as reduced stress, anxiety and depression, and increased resilience and well-being. Individuals who practice self-compassion tend to have lower levels of cortisol, a stress hormone, and higher levels of oxytocin, a hormone associated with bonding and connection. These findings suggest that self-compassion can have a tangible impact on our physiology, promoting a greater sense of calm, connection, and emotional well-being. Can self-compassion have a tangible effect on our neurochemistry? Research shows that individuals who practice self-compassion tend to have lower levels of cortisol, a stress hormone, and higher levels of oxytocin, a hormone associated with bonding and connection. This suggests that self-compassion can have a tangible impact on our physiology, promoting a greater sense of calm, connection, and emotional well-being. Furthermore, studies have shown that self-compassion is associated with increased resilience, reduced anxiety and depression, and improved overall psychological well-being. The research supports the benefits. Setting realistic expectations also promotes self-compassion and resilience. By letting go of unrealistic standards and embracing imperfections, we can reduce stress and increase satisfaction. Is it possible to embrace imperfection without losing sight of our goals? Setting achievable goals, practicing self-acceptance, and celebrating small victories are all ways to promote self-compassion and resilience. Instead of striving for perfection, we can focus on progress, acknowledging our efforts and celebrating our successes, no matter how small. We can also practice self-acceptance, recognizing that we are all imperfect beings and that our worth is not contingent on our achievements. But is there a danger of settling for mediocrity if we lower our expectations? It is crucial to consider that some may have difficulty even identifying their needs. Trauma, societal pressure, or other variables may cause an individual to not even recognize their needs or what their needs are. Self-compassion may be difficult because of this. What if we don't know what we need? In essence, resilience, self-compassion, and realistic expectations are essential inner resources for navigating the dark night of the soul. Resilience is not about avoiding suffering, but about developing the capacity to cope with it in a healthy and constructive way. It's a set of skills and practices that can be developed over time. Are these enough to help someone through the dark night of the soul? Cultivating inner resources is essential, but it's also important to recognize that we are not meant to go through life's challenges alone. Connecting with others and seeking support can be a powerful source of strength and healing. But how do we overcome the feeling of isolation that often accompanies the dark night of the soul? And how do we build supportive relationships that can help us navigate these challenging times? How can we cultivate supportive relationships and communities that can help us navigate the dark night of the soul and emerge stronger on the other side? Now that we've explored the importance of inner resources, let's turn our attention to the power of social support and how it can help us navigate life's challenges with greater resilience and well-being. The next section will delve into the various forms of support available and how these support systems can serve as beacons of hope during our darkest times. Cultivating inner resources is undeniably essential for navigating the tumultuous waters of the dark night of the soul. Yet we must also acknowledge an equally profound truth, that human beings are inherently social creatures, and that even the strongest individual can benefit from the support and connection of others. For while resilience can indeed be developed through practices like self-compassion and realistic optimism, is it truly possible to weather the most intense storms of life entirely alone? Think of resilience as a lone tree standing defiant against a raging tempest. It may possess deep roots and a sturdy trunk, but its vulnerability is undeniable. Now imagine instead a forest, where trees stand together, their roots intertwined, offering mutual support and protection against the very same storm. Which is more likely to endure? The image serves as a potent reminder that while inner strength is vital, it is often amplified and sustained through the power of community. What happens then when solitude transforms from a sanctuary into a suffocating prison? Isolation during spiritual crises can be particularly treacherous, exacerbating feelings of hopelessness, despair, and even leading to a distorted perception of reality. Without external validation or a sense of shared experience, individuals may begin to question their sanity, feeling as though they are teetering on the brink of madness. As Jung observed, the individual who is not anchored in God can offer no resistance to the world, for never can anyone be absolutely alone. How can we distinguish between a healthy period of introspection and a descent into debilitating isolation? Imagine someone grappling with a profound loss of faith, questioning the very foundations of their belief system. If they lack a supportive network of friends, family, or spiritual advisors, they may become consumed by doubt and uncertainty, unable to find solace or guidance. The absence of external validation can lead them to believe that they are somehow broken or flawed, further fueling their feelings of isolation and despair. Having someone hear and understand your story without judgment can be transformative, validating the experience and normalizing the difficult emotions that arise. Is the act of bearing witness a fundamental human need? Social support, in its myriad forms, offers a powerful antidote to the dangers of isolation, providing a sense of belonging, validation, and access to diverse perspectives and experiences. Sharing our struggles with others can help us realize that we are not alone in our suffering, and that our experiences, however painful or unsettling, are often shared by others. This sense of shared humanity can be profoundly comforting, reminding us that we are part of something larger than ourselves. But what types of support systems are available, and how can we navigate them effectively? Within various spiritual traditions, the concept of a spiritual friend holds a place of profound importance. These are not merely casual acquaintances, but rather individuals who serve as guides, mentors, and companions on the spiritual path, offering wisdom, support, and accountability. Contrast this with regular friendship, which may be based on shared interests or social connections. A spiritual friend offers a deeper connection that transcends the ordinary. How does a spiritual friend differ from other types of friends? In Buddhism, the term Krlya Macron letter 1E47, Amittata, refers to spiritual friendship as an essential aspect of the path to enlightenment. A Krlya Macron letter 1E47, Amitta is a trusted and wise companion who can offer guidance, encouragement, and support on the journey. Similarly, in Christianity, the concept of spiritual direction emphasizes the importance of having a trusted mentor or advisor who can provide spiritual guidance and support. These spiritual friends are there to help us navigate the inevitable challenges and doubts that arise on the spiritual journey, offering a safe space to explore our deepest questions and fears. Is it possible to cultivate such a deep connection with another person in our modern, fast-paced world? Beyond spiritual friendships, there exists a spectrum of support systems, ranging from formal therapy and support groups to spiritual communities and informal networks of friends and family. Each of these options offers unique benefits and drawbacks, and the most effective approach often involves a combination of different types of support. How do we choose the support system that is right for us? Formal therapy, for instance, provides a structured environment for processing difficult emotions, identifying unhealthy patterns of thinking and behavior, and developing coping strategies. Finding a therapist who is knowledgeable about spiritual issues is paramount, as they can offer guidance and support that is aligned with your values and beliefs. Contrast this with the more organic and peer-led nature of support groups, where individuals share their experiences and offer mutual encouragement and validation. What are the potential pitfalls of relying solely on therapy or support groups? It is crucial to consider that support groups are not a panacea. Sometimes, members can inadvertently enable self-pity and destructive behaviors, reinforcing unhealthy patterns rather than challenging them. A group of individuals who consistently validate each other's negative beliefs or behaviors may create an echo chamber that hinders personal growth. It is vital to discern whether a support group is truly fostering healing and growth, or simply providing a space for shared complaint and stagnation. Is there a danger in becoming too comfortable in our shared suffering? To illustrate the transformative power of supportive relationships and communities, let us consider the anonymized case of Sarah, who overcame a profound crisis of faith by joining a spiritual community and finding a mentor who could provide guidance and support. Sarah had been raised in a strict religious environment, and when she began to question the tenets of her faith, she felt isolated and alone. She feared that she was somehow losing her way and that she would be rejected by her family and friends. But what happened when she sought support outside of her familiar circles? Through her involvement in the spiritual community, Sarah discovered that she was not alone in her doubts and questions. She found a safe space to explore her spirituality without judgment and to connect with others who had similar experiences. Her mentor, a wise and compassionate spiritual teacher, helped her to reframe her understanding of faith, emphasizing the importance of personal experience and inner knowing over blind adherence to dogma. Ultimately, Sarah emerged from her crisis of faith with a renewed sense of purpose and a deeper, more authentic connection to the divine. But can we always expect such a positive outcome from seeking support? It's crucial to approach support systems with a keen awareness of the ethical considerations involved. We must avoid dependency, maintain healthy boundaries, and respect individual autonomy, ensuring that we are seeking support to empower ourselves, rather than becoming overly reliant on others. Seeking support should not be a crutch, but a catalyst for personal growth and self-discovery. Are we at risk of sacrificing our independence when we seek support from others? It's important to guard against seeking support from individuals who are not qualified or ethical, such as those who promote harmful ideologies or exploit vulnerable individuals. Be wary of those who are manipulative, controlling, or who attempt to impose their own beliefs or values on others. These individuals may prey on your vulnerability, offering false promises of healing or enlightenment while subtly undermining your sense of self. How can we discern between genuine support and manipulation? The shadow, that repository of repressed emotions, instincts, and unacceptable aspects of our personality, can also play a significant role in who we choose as a support. A person who is overly critical of others, for example, may unconsciously seek out a support system of others who are equally critical, thus reinforcing their own shadow. Similarly, someone who struggles with feelings of inadequacy may seek out relationships in which they are constantly seeking validation, perpetuating a cycle of dependency. Is it possible that our shadow influences our choice of support systems without our conscious awareness? In essence, finding healthy and ethical sources of connection and guidance is a critical aspect of navigating the dark night of the soul. Seeking support is not a sign of weakness, but rather a sign of strength and self-awareness, demonstrating a willingness to reach out and connect with others on the journey. But seeking support is not the final step. It is merely a bridge to a more balanced state of being. Where, then, does support lead us? Having explored the importance of support systems, let's turn our attention to the concept of interdependence, which represents a harmonious balance between independence and dependence. Interdependence acknowledges that we are all interconnected, and that we can rely on each other for support and guidance while still maintaining our individual autonomy and sense of self. This contrasts sharply with codependency, where one sense of self is entirely reliant on another, or counterdependence, where one rejects support out of fear of vulnerability. Is interdependence the key to creating more compassionate and supportive communities? Now that we've explored the importance of support systems, let's turn our attention to the concept of interdependence and how it can help us create more meaningful and fulfilling relationships and communities. Certain personality types may be more averse to seeking help, or alternatively, become overly dependent on others. In our next exploration, we'll examine how to cultivate interdependence in our relationships and communities, and how we can use our experiences of the dark night of the soul to create a more compassionate and supportive world. XXXIII. Beyond dependence, the harmony of interdependence, while the ability to stand strong on one's own, is undoubtedly crucial, particularly after the intense trials of experiences such as the dark night. It is equally important to recognize that true strength lies not in isolated independence, but in the harmonious interplay of interdependence. Is it not a more mature and balanced approach to relationships to move beyond the limitations of dependence and the potential isolation of extreme independence toward a state of mutual support and growth? This shift represents a natural progression for those seeking wholeness, a testament to the transformative power of navigating difficult experiences and emerging with a renewed sense of connection. Consider the contrasting images of two trees. One, a solitary figure on a barren hilltop, exposed to the elements and isolated from its kin. The other, an ivy-choked specimen, overwhelmed by the parasitic embrace of a clinging vine. Neither represents a healthy ideal. Contrast these with the image of trees in a thriving forest, their roots intertwined, supporting each other against the wind while maintaining their individual form and reaching for the sky. This forest embodies interdependence, a dynamic interplay of giving and receiving, where individuals offer support and receive it in turn, fostering mutual growth and resilience. But how does this interplay manifest in our own lives? Interdependence can be likened to a healthy ecosystem, where different organisms rely on each other for survival and well-being. Consider also the dynamics of a successful group project, where each member brings unique strengths and addresses individual weaknesses, ultimately contributing to a shared goal. One cannot be good at everything. It is crucial to recognize personal limits and to seek help from others when necessary. Interdependence, therefore, requires both a strong sense of self and a willingness to connect with and support others, creating a virtuous cycle of growth and connection. Is it not this balance that allows us to flourish, both as individuals and as a collective? However, some personalities might find this balance difficult to achieve, struggling to either ask for or offer help. XXXIV. Dissecting interdependence. Key characteristics and benefits. Interdependence is defined by several key characteristics: mutual respect, clear boundaries, open communication, shared responsibility, and a commitment to mutual growth and well-being. Each of these elements plays a vital role in fostering healthy and thriving relationships and communities. But what do these characteristics look like in practice? Mutual respect, for instance, involves valuing the other person's perspectives and needs, even when they differ from one's own. This requires active listening, empathy, and a willingness to compromise. Clear boundaries, on the other hand, define the limits of what is acceptable in a relationship, ensuring that each person's autonomy and sense of self are respected. Open communication involves honest and transparent expression of thoughts and feelings, while shared responsibility ensures that each person contributes to the well-being of the relationship or community. And finally, a commitment to mutual growth and well-being involves supporting each other's personal development and striving for a shared sense of fulfillment. What happens when these elements are absent? It is important to differentiate interdependence from both codependence and counterdependence. Codependence manifests as an excessive reliance on others for validation and self-worth, often leading to a blurring of boundaries and a sacrifice of one's own needs. Consider someone who bases their entire self-worth on being needed by others, constantly seeking to rescue or fix them to the detriment of their own well-being. Counterdependence, conversely, involves an avoidance of intimacy and reliance on others due to a fear of vulnerability. But if codependence is a vine strangling the tree, and counterdependence is a tree refusing to join the forest, what makes interdependence so valuable? The benefits of interdependence for individuals and communities are numerous and far-reaching, including increased resilience, stronger relationships, enhanced creativity, and a greater sense of purpose. Interdependent communities are better equipped to cope with challenges and adapt to change due to their diverse resources and strong social connections. Shared knowledge and skills can be brought to bear on problems, and mutual support can help individuals weather difficult times. Moreover, the feeling of belonging and connection that comes from interdependence can foster a greater sense of purpose and meaning in life. Is interdependence the invisible backbone of a thriving society? It is important to recognize that all prior points in this video build towards establishing interdependence, the ultimate goal of recovery and growth. XXXV. The ethics of support, responsibility and boundaries. Having examined the role of the recipient of support, let us turn our attention to the ethical considerations involved in being a provider of support. Offering guidance and assistance to others, especially those navigating difficult experiences such as the dark night of the soul, carries a significant responsibility. Are we always prepared for the weight of that responsibility? What happens when we offer support that is misguided or harmful? Consider the analogy of being a lifeguard. A support person has a responsibility to ensure the safety and well-being of those they are helping. This requires a clear understanding of ethical boundaries, a commitment to respecting individual autonomy, and a willingness to refrain from offering advice that is beyond one's expertise. A support person should avoid imposing their own beliefs or values on others, and instead create a safe and non-judgmental space for them to explore their own thoughts and feelings. They must be a mirror reflecting back the person's inner world. But how do we avoid crossing the line from support to control? One of the dangers to avoid in support relationships is spiritual bypassing, where individuals offer simplistic or superficial solutions to complex problems, avoiding the deeper emotional and psychological work that is needed. Dismissing a person's feelings by telling them to just be positive or just have faith, rather than acknowledging their pain and offering genuine support, can be deeply invalidating and harmful. Such statements undermine the person's experiences and prevent real integration from happening. Instead of these invalidating remarks, one must be willing to sit with and witness the suffering of another. But is mere presence enough? It is also crucial to avoid enabling destructive behavior, such as consistently helping a friend pay for alcohol when they are struggling with alcoholism. Instead, it is important to encourage them to seek professional help and to set healthy boundaries that protect one's own well-being. A friend in that situation may, while it feels counterintuitive, need to distance themselves for their own well-being. The potential challenges and rewards of being a support person can be great, but it is essential to prioritize self-care, set boundaries, and seek support for oneself. As the saying goes, you can't pour from an empty cup. Should self-sacrifice be an ideal or a warning? Certain personalities may be drawn to becoming a support person for the wrong reasons, such as to fulfill their own ego needs or to feel superior to others. They may seek to control or manipulate those they are helping, rather than empowering them to find their own path. It is crucial to examine one's own motivations for offering support and to ensure that one is acting from a place of genuine compassion and empathy, rather than from a desire for control or recognition. What subtle ways do our own shadows influence how we offer support? XXXVI. From the individual to the collective. A vision of interdependent communities. In summary, interdependence and ethical support are essential for creating relationships and communities based on mutual respect, shared responsibility, and a commitment to mutual growth. Interdependence is not a one-way street, but rather a reciprocal arrangement where individuals both give and receive support. With this in mind, what vision can we imagine for interdependent communities that promote individual and collective well-being, fostering a culture of compassion, empathy, and social justice? Imagine a world where everyone has access to the support they need to thrive, where communities are built on trust and collaboration, and where everyone is empowered to reach their full potential. This vision requires a fundamental shift in our thinking, moving away from individualistic values toward a more collectivist and interconnected worldview. But how do we make this vision a reality? How can we cultivate interdependence in our own lives and communities? And how can we use our experiences of transcendence and the dark night of the soul to create a more just and compassionate world? How can we take the lessons we've learned from our own struggles and use them to create a world where everyone has the opportunity to heal, grow, and thrive? While support systems and interdependent communities are essential, it's also important to recognize that each of us has a personal responsibility to create a more compassionate and just world. But what does this responsibility entail? As we will explore further, this responsibility extends to the critical task of integration after a transcendental experience, ensuring that the insights gained are translated into meaningful action. XXXVII. The buck stops here. Defining personal responsibility, does a transcendental experience guarantee lasting change, or merely offer a fleeting moment of relief? Personal responsibility is the cornerstone of meaningful integration and growth, especially following transformative experiences or during challenging times like the dark night of the soul, acting as active participation in shaping one's life, rather than passive victimhood. Consider two individuals who have undergone a profound spiritual awakening. One sits back and waits for the universe to magically solve their problems, while the other actively seeks to align their daily actions with the newfound insights, working to heal old wounds and build healthier habits. Which path do you believe leads to lasting transformation? Personal responsibility encompasses self-awareness, ethical decision-making, and proactive action, aligning one's life with deeply held values and insights. Self-awareness involves understanding one's strengths and weaknesses, biases, and emotional triggers, allowing for conscious choices rather than reactive behaviors. Ethical decision-making involves carefully considering the impact of one's actions on oneself and others, striving to act in ways that promote well-being and minimize harm. Proactive action involves taking concrete steps to create a life that reflects one's authentic self, pursuing goals with intention and perseverance. Is it not clear that these actions require real effort and commitment? Personal responsibility is not about blame or self-criticism, but about empowering oneself to take ownership of one's choices and create a life that reflects one's authentic self. Self-compassion and self-acceptance are essential components of this process, because you cannot change what you don't acknowledge. Imagine trying to navigate a dark room while berating yourself for bumping into the furniture. A kinder, more accepting approach will always yield better results. Cultivating a sense of self-worth and recognizing one's inherent value allows for greater resilience in the face of challenges and setbacks. Is it not this inherent value that empowers an individual to keep trying? XXXVI. Components of responsibility. A deeper dive self-awareness serves as the bedrock of personal responsibility, enabling individuals to understand their motivations, biases, and patterns of behavior. But how do we cultivate this crucial capacity for self-understanding? What practices can we incorporate into our daily lives to illuminate the hidden corners of our inner world? Consider the practice of journaling, a powerful tool for gaining insight into one's thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. By regularly recording our experiences and reflections, we can begin to identify recurring patterns and gain a deeper understanding of our underlying motivations. Mindfulness meditation offers another avenue for cultivating self-awareness, training us to observe our thoughts and feelings without judgment, allowing us to become more attuned to our inner states. Seeking feedback from trusted sources, friends, family, therapists can also provide valuable perspectives on our blind spots and areas for growth. Do these practices sound simple or simplistic? Ethical decision-making plays a pivotal role in personal responsibility, guiding individuals to make choices that align with their values and promote the well-being of themselves and others. But how do we navigate the complex ethical dilemmas that arise in everyday life? How do we weigh competing values and determine the most ethical course of action? Ethical frameworks like utilitarianism, deontology, and virtue ethics offer different lenses through which to approach moral dilemmas. Utilitarianism emphasizes maximizing overall happiness and minimizing harm, while deontology focuses on adherence to moral duties and principles. Virtue ethics, on the other hand, emphasizes the cultivation of virtuous character traits, such as compassion, honesty, and courage. When faced with a difficult decision, it can be helpful to consider these different perspectives and weigh the potential consequences of each course of action. How does one weigh good and bad when making life choices, especially when those choices have different costs for ourselves and others? Proactive action empowers individuals to take concrete steps to create positive change in their lives and the world. But how do we translate our intentions into tangible results? How do we overcome the inertia of procrastination and take consistent action toward our goals? Skills like goal setting, time management, and overcoming procrastination are essential for taking proactive action. Breaking down large goals into smaller, more manageable steps can make them less daunting and more achievable. Prioritizing tasks, setting deadlines, and using time management techniques can help us stay focused and productive. Overcoming procrastination often involves identifying the underlying fears or anxieties that are holding us back and developing strategies for managing them. The road to hell is paved with good intentions, yet how many of us travel that road despite our best efforts? It is also important to accurately assess one's own resources and limitations. Acknowledging the need to seek professional help, whether for mental health challenges, addiction issues, or other personal struggles, is a sign of strength, not weakness. Recognizing when we need support and reaching out for assistance is an essential component of personal responsibility. Are we always the best judges of our own abilities? XXXIX. Case studies and real-world scenarios consider the anonymized case study of Sarah, an individual who overcame addiction by taking responsibility for her choices and seeking help from a support group. Sarah had struggled with substance abuse for years, cycling through periods of sobriety and relapse. One day, she had a profound realization. She could no longer blame her past traumas or external circumstances for her addiction. She had to take ownership of her choices and actively work to change her life. Sarah sought help from a therapist and joined a 12-step program where she found support and guidance from others who had experienced similar struggles. Through consistent effort and a commitment to personal responsibility, Sarah achieved long-term sobriety and created a life filled with meaning and purpose. Does Sarah's success not also hinge on her willingness to actively seek support? Another compelling example of ethical decision-making and proactive action in the face of adversity is the story of Cynthia Cooper, a whistleblower who exposed corporate corruption at WorldCom. Cooper, then Vice President of Internal Audit, discovered billions of dollars in fraudulent accounting practices that were designed to inflate the company's stock price. Despite immense pressure from her superiors to remain silent, Cooper made the courageous decision to report the fraud to the company's board of directors and to federal authorities. Her actions ultimately led to the downfall of WorldCom and the prosecution of several top executives. Cooper demonstrated moral courage by acting on her values, even when it was difficult and unpopular. But at what cost to Cooper's career and personal life did this moral courage come? Moral courage involves acting according to one's beliefs, even when it may result in social ostracization, professional setbacks, or even personal danger. Imagine a scientist who challenges a widely accepted scientific theory despite the risk of ridicule from their peers, or an activist who protests against injustice despite the threat of arrest. These individuals exemplify moral courage, demonstrating a willingness to stand up for what they believe is right, even when it is difficult or unpopular. However, is there not a fine line between moral courage and reckless disregard for consequences? It is also important to acknowledge that socio-economic privilege can often make it easier for some to take responsibility for their lives than for others. Individuals from marginalized communities may face systemic barriers, such as poverty, discrimination, and lack of access to resources, that significantly impact their ability to make positive choices. Addressing these systemic inequalities is essential for creating a society where everyone has the opportunity to take ownership of their lives. Can true personal responsibility exist without addressing the disparities? Excel. Boundaries and the shadow. Responsibility's tricky side. In essence, personal responsibility is about self-awareness, ethical decision-making, and proactive action, striving to live in alignment with one's values and creating a life that is meaningful and fulfilling. But this is not the whole story. Are there limits to personal responsibility? What happens when external factors beyond our control significantly impact our lives? Individuals do not have complete control over their circumstances, and external factors can play a significant role in their lives. Systemic inequality, trauma, and mental health challenges can significantly impact an individual's ability to take personal responsibility. A person struggling with severe depression, for example, may find it incredibly difficult to take proactive action, even when they desperately want to change their life. Similarly, someone who has experienced significant trauma may have difficulty regulating their emotions and making rational decisions. How can we reconcile the importance of personal responsibility with the reality of external factors that can significantly impact our lives? there is a shadow side of personal responsibility. The tendency to blame oneself for things that are beyond one's control or to become overly critical of oneself and others are very real dangers. It is easy to fall into the trap of self-blame, berating oneself for past mistakes or perceived failures. It is also easy to become overly critical of others, judging them harshly for their choices and shortcomings. But how can we avoid these pitfalls and cultivate a more balanced and nuanced understanding of personal responsibility? Indeed, despite challenges, a degree of integration is expected after transcendental experiences, and society generally has little sympathy for continued destructive behavior. A person cannot expect to be coddled forever. However, if an individual acts in ways that are destructive or harmful to themselves or others, they may face negative consequences, such as social isolation, legal repercussions, or financial hardship. When does support end and accountability begin? How can we cultivate a balanced and nuanced understanding of personal responsibility, recognizing both its power and its limitations? How can we create a world that supports and empowers individuals to take ownership of their lives, while also acknowledging the impact of external factors and systemic inequalities? These are critical questions that we must grapple with as we strive to create a more just and compassionate world. But perhaps the answer lies not in either extreme, but in finding the golden mean between personal accountability and societal support, as we will see in the next section, which will touch on living a balanced life. XLI. The tightrope walk. Introducing balanced living. Can balance simply be a matter of moderation, avoiding extremes in all aspects of life? Or does it require something more profound, a more comprehensive approach to well-being? Balanced living goes beyond mere abstinence or the avoidance of excess. It is the practical embodiment of integrated transcendent experiences, encompassing holistic well-being. Balanced living is not merely about restricting certain behaviors, but about fostering a fulfilling and purposeful life. It invites you to actively embody the transformative insights gained from transcendent experiences. The necessity of balanced living becomes evident when we consider the potential for idealizing transcendental experiences, which can lead to disillusionment with the seemingly mundane aspects of ordinary reality. Without a balanced approach, one risks spiritual bypassing, using spiritual ideas to avoid dealing with unresolved emotional issues or practical life challenges. Balanced living, however, grounds spiritual insights in real-world actions, ensuring that transformative experiences translate into tangible improvements in one's life. What good are insights if they never see the light of day? Balanced living entails active participation in the world rather than passive detachment from it. It necessitates engagement with one's community, embracing meaningful work, and cultivating healthy relationships. While being is essential, being present, being mindful, being open, it is insufficient on its own. There needs to be doing, an active expression of one's inner state in the external world. A life of pure contemplation, while valuable in its own right, lacks the dynamism and engagement necessary for true balance. Is balanced living about striking a balance between being and doing? XLII. Defining balance. The core pillars at the foundation of balanced living lies physical health, encompassing nutrition, exercise, and rest. Beyond mere physical comfort, these practices can further spiritual goals by optimizing the body's capacity for mindfulness, meditation, and other contemplative practices. A healthy body can provide a stable and comfortable platform for deeper exploration. When the body is burdened by illness or discomfort, it can be difficult to fully engage in spiritual pursuits. Can one focus on transcendence when one is in pain? Emotional well-being is equally essential, encompassing self-awareness, emotional regulation, and healthy coping mechanisms for stress. Practices like journaling, mindfulness, and therapy can aid in developing these crucial skills. Journaling provides a space for reflecting on one's experiences, while mindfulness cultivates the ability to observe one's emotions without judgment. Therapy, on the other hand, offers guidance and support in addressing deeper emotional issues. These skills facilitate the ability to navigate the ups and downs of life with grace and resilience. What could be more important than improving your self-awareness? Meaningful work and purpose contribute significantly to balanced living, regardless of whether it's paid employment or volunteer work. A sense of purpose infuses one's life with meaning, direction, and motivation, and a sense of making a contribution. It can be found in creative endeavors, acts of service, or intellectual pursuits. When one feels that their actions are contributing to something larger than themselves, it can bring a deep sense of satisfaction and fulfillment. Is this sense of purpose something that one can simply stumble upon, or must it be actively sought? Healthy relationships serve as vital sources of support, connection, and love. They involve establishing clear boundaries, practicing effective communication, and offering mutual support. Boundaries protect one's emotional and physical well-being, while communication fosters understanding and intimacy. Mutual support provides a sense of belonging and shared responsibility. Healthy relationships can act as a powerful buffer against stress and loneliness. Do healthy relationships imply a lack of conflict? Spiritual practice plays an important role, though not necessarily religious. It constitutes any consistent effort to connect with something larger than oneself. This may involve spending time in nature, engaging in meditation, or pursuing philosophical study. Time spent in nature can evoke a sense of awe and wonder, reminding us of the interconnectedness of all things. Meditation cultivates inner peace and clarity, while philosophical study expands our understanding of the world and our place in it. Can spiritual practice exist outside of a religious context? Excelia. Real people, real balance. Case studies in action consider the anonymized case study of Michael, who overcame addiction and transformed his life by embracing balanced living after a near-death experience. Michael had struggled with substance abuse for years, and after surviving an overdose, he experienced a profound spiritual awakening. This experience motivated him to take responsibility for his life and seek help from a therapist and a support group. He focused on improving his physical health through exercise and nutrition, cultivated emotional well-being through mindfulness and journaling, found purpose in his work as a mentor to other addicts, and nurtured healthy relationships with his family and friends. Through consistent effort and a commitment to balanced living, Michael achieved long-term sobriety and created a life filled with meaning and purpose. Did Michael's near-death experience change his brain? Research studies support the benefits of balanced living on mental, physical, and spiritual well-being. Studies on mindfulness, for instance, have demonstrated its effectiveness in reducing stress, improving focus, and enhancing emotional regulation. Research on social connection has highlighted its positive impact on longevity and overall health. And studies on the benefits of physical activity have shown its ability to improve mood, boost energy levels, and reduce the risk of chronic diseases. These findings highlight the importance of adopting a holistic approach to well-being. How can these different research findings be synthesized? It's important to acknowledge the potential for imbalance and the importance of regularly re-evaluating one's life to adjust course. One may place undue emphasis on one aspect of life, leading to the neglect of others. For instance, one may become overly focused on their career, neglecting their physical health and relationships. Or one may become overly engrossed in spiritual pursuits, neglecting their practical responsibilities. Regularly checking in with oneself and assessing the various aspects of one's life is essential for maintaining balance over the long term. Is it human nature to become obsessed? Excelia. Synthesis, pitfalls, and preparation. In essence, the key pillars of balanced living are physical health, emotional well-being, meaningful work, healthy relationships, and spiritual practice. Balanced living encompasses embodiment, self-awareness, and intentional action. Balanced living isn't a destination, but an ongoing process of cultivation and adjustment, a continuous dance between the various aspects of one's life. How do you begin dancing in the first place? However, it is also important to consider potential pitfalls. The tendency to overemphasize one area of life at the expense of others, or to become overly rigid in one's approach, are real dangers. It's important to remember that balance isn't about perfection, but about striving for wholeness and alignment. It involves accepting one's imperfections and embracing the ongoing process of growth and change. How can one avoid the trap of perfectionism? This brings us to the question, what happens when balance is disrupted, and how can we navigate periods of imbalance with grace and resilience? Is imbalance always negative, or can it serve a purpose in our lives? As we will explore, periods of imbalance, while challenging, can also serve as opportunities for growth and self-discovery, prompting us to re-evaluate our priorities and make necessary adjustments. And what happens when one aspect of life has a knock-on effect on another, say a new job leading to worse sleep, poor food choices, and less exercise? In the next section, we'll confront these questions head-on. XLV, the value of disruption. Is imbalance always bad, but is balance always the ideal? Or can temporary, intentional imbalance sometimes be a catalyst for profound growth and self-discovery? The notion that balance is always desirable is comforting, but it may also be limiting. Sometimes, the most profound insights come from disrupting the status quo, even if that disruption is uncomfortable. What if, at times, imbalance is precisely what we need to shake us out of complacency and propel us forward? Consciously chosen periods of imbalance can reveal hidden strengths, expose limiting beliefs, and force us to adapt and evolve in ways we never thought possible. Consider the concept of creative destruction in economics, where disruptive innovations lead to long-term economic growth, but inevitably create short-term instability and displace existing industries. Similarly, in our personal lives, periods of imbalance can disrupt our routines and challenge our assumptions, ultimately leading to new levels of understanding and competence. A person who dedicates a year to intense study and training in a new field, temporarily sacrificing other aspects of their life, may gain valuable skills and insights that would not have been possible otherwise. But how do we differentiate a conscious investment from a destructive spiral? The key lies in intention and self-awareness. The same act of working intensely can be seen as positive if the person is consciously choosing to invest in something meaningful, or negative if they are running away from something they're afraid to confront. Are they driven by a desire for growth or a fear of stagnation? Some people may even feel intrinsically drawn to imbalance, thriving in situations that others would find chaotic or overwhelming. This is not necessarily pathological. It may simply be a reflection of their unique temperament and their willingness to embrace risk and uncertainty. Could it be that some personalities simply require imbalance to flourish? XLVI. Exploring the edges. Specific imbalance archetypes consider the ascetic archetype. Temporarily sacrificing material comforts and social connections can lead to heightened spiritual awareness and self-discipline. Throughout history, monks and hermits have sought enlightenment through prolonged periods of solitude, fasting, and meditation. These practices, while extreme, are aimed at stripping away distractions and focusing on the inner life. However, such practices can easily go awry, leading to isolation, self-righteousness, or even mental instability. Is the ascetic truly seeking enlightenment or merely escaping from the world? The artist archetype provides another lens. Temporary immersion in creative expression can lead to breakthroughs in their chosen field. Think of the musician who isolates themselves for weeks to compose an album, or the writer who disappears into their study to finish a novel. This dedication can come at the expense of other aspects of life, such as relationships or health. However, it can also result in works of profound beauty and originality. Does this justify the sacrifice, or is there a healthier way to create? Then there's the entrepreneur archetype. Dedicating oneself entirely to the creation of a business or project can lead to gains in professional and mental acuity, but often at the cost of all other areas. A software developer may temporarily sacrifice relationships, health, and well-being in order to bring a product to market. The long hours, the constant stress, and the relentless pressure to succeed can take a toll. Yet, the rewards can be immense, both financially and emotionally. Is the potential reward worth the very real risks, or is there a point where ambition becomes self-destructive? Certain personalities are more likely to temporarily disrupt their own balances. The highly driven or obsessive may find it very difficult to maintain balance and may not even want to. These individuals often possess a laser-like focus and an unwavering commitment to their goals. This can be a tremendous asset, allowing them to achieve remarkable things. However, it can also be a liability, leading to burnout, strained relationships, and a narrow perspective on life. Is it possible to harness the power of obsession without succumbing to its pitfalls? XLVII. Case studies. Transformative disruption in practice. Consider the anonymized case study of Sarah, who quit her stable but unfulfilling job to travel the world. This decision meant uncertainty, potential financial instability, and social ostracization from some family members. However, it also allowed her to discover new passions, connect with diverse cultures, and gain a deeper understanding of herself. While the journey was not without its challenges, Sarah ultimately returned with a renewed sense of purpose and a clearer vision for her future. Did Sarah need to lose everything to find herself? Research studies have investigated the psychological effects of periods of intense focus or immersion. Studies on peak performance, flow states, and deep work highlight the importance of intentionality and self-regulation. When individuals are fully engaged in a challenging task, they often experience a sense of heightened awareness, intense focus, and a loss of self-consciousness. However, these states can also be addictive, leading to neglect of other important areas of life. How can we cultivate these peak experiences without becoming dependent on them? Self-awareness and monitoring for potential negative consequences, such as burnout, exhaustion, or strained relationships, is crucial. It's essential to be honest with yourself about whether the imbalance is serving a positive purpose or becoming destructive. Are you growing and evolving, or simply running in circles? Are you sacrificing your well-being for a fleeting sense of accomplishment? And what happens when imbalance is forced upon us? It's important to note the degree to which some are forced into imbalance as a result of trauma or poverty, which is distinctly different from those who consciously seek it. A working parent with 2 jobs is experiencing imbalance, but one that is neither enjoyable nor enriching. This type of imbalance is often characterized by chronic stress, exhaustion, and a lack of control. It's crucial to recognize the difference between chosen imbalance and imposed imbalance, and to approach each with compassion and understanding. Is there even a comparison? XLVII. Reintegrating disruption. Harvest and course correction imbalance isn't about recklessly abandoning all sense of proportion, but about strategically disrupting the status quo to unlock new potential. Intention, self-awareness, and careful monitoring are essential. How, then, do we reintegrate after a period of intentional imbalance? The key is not to remain in a state of imbalance indefinitely, but to use the insights gained to create a more balanced and fulfilling life. Transitioning from a state of constant activity to a state of relative calm can be difficult, and it's important to be patient with yourself during this process. The intensity and excitement of the imbalanced period can be alluring, making it difficult to readjust to a more sustainable pace. There may also be a need to readjust to a more balanced pace, and to readjust to relationships, physical needs, and all the other components that were cast aside. This requires reflection, adjustment, and reprioritization, and we'll explore these processes in more depth in the coming section. How can we take what we've learned and create a more sustainable way of living? How can we use periods of intentional imbalance to learn and grow? and how can we integrate these experiences into a more balanced and fulfilling life? What specific steps can we take to ensure that our disruptions lead to positive transformation rather than self-destruction? The next section will focus on course correction. XLIX, the art of the ray entry, landing and readjustment after periods of intense exploration or intentional imbalance. The art of ray entry becomes paramount. Ray entry is the delicate and often challenging phase of gradually readjusting to a more sustainable rhythm of life, a critical landing after a period of intense focus. Consider it akin to the experience of astronauts returning to Earth after a space mission, an analogy that speaks volumes about the adjustments required. Just as astronauts must gradually readjust to gravity and Earth's atmosphere, undergoing physical rehabilitation to regain their strength and coordination, so too must we carefully navigate the transition back to our everyday lives after periods of intentional disruption. Neglecting this crucial phase can lead to a jarring collision with reality, potentially undermining the very insights and growth we sought in the first place. Key components of course correction. Self-reflection is the cornerstone of effective course correction. It involves taking the time to assess the impact of the imbalance on various aspects of your life, understanding what the imbalance accomplished, and extracting valuable lessons from the experience. This can involve journaling prompts, where you explore your thoughts and feelings in a structured way. This can also involve mindful meditation, allowing you to observe your inner landscape without judgment. It can also involve engaging in honest conversations with trusted friends or therapists, gaining objective perspectives on your experiences. Furthermore, journaling may enable you to identify destructive patterns that served no purpose. Reprioritization plays a crucial role in aligning your goals, values, and commitments based on your newfound insights and experiences. This may involve reassessing your time management, relationships, career aspirations, or financial priorities. For instance, after a period of intense focus on a specific project, you might realize that you've neglected your relationships or your physical health. In this case, you would need to consciously reprioritize these areas, making a deliberate effort to invest more time and energy in nurturing them. Reprioritization is also about identifying those activities and commitments that no longer serve your goals and values, and having the courage to let them go. Which are the ones that served your goals, and which are the ones that did not? Boundary setting is essential for maintaining balance and preventing a relapse into unhealthy patterns. This involves identifying and communicating your limits to others, setting realistic expectations, and saying no to requests that are not aligned with your values. For example, if you've previously struggled with overworking, you might set a boundary of only working a certain number of hours per week, or of not checking emails after a certain time. You must clearly communicate these boundaries to your colleagues and clients, and be prepared to enforce them, even if it means disappointing others. Where should your time and energy be directed now, and what are you willing to sacrifice to protect your well-being? Seeking support is critical for navigating the challenges of course correction and maintaining momentum. This can involve connecting with a mentor who can provide guidance and encouragement, joining a support group where you can share your experiences with others, or seeking therapy to address any emotional or psychological issues that may arise during the transition. For example, if you're struggling with feelings of anxiety or depression, a therapist can help you develop coping mechanisms and strategies for managing your emotions. In short, re-entering isn't something that needs to be done alone. The degree to which each of these strategies are successful needs to be objectively assessed and adapted as needed. LI. Case studies and research. Backing the transition, consider the case of Anna, who returned to full-time employment after dedicating a year to caring for a sick family member. Anna successfully reintegrated into the workforce by carefully reprioritizing her career goals. She set firm boundaries to prevent burnout. She also attended counseling sessions to process the emotions she had while dealing with the illness. Ultimately, this helped her succeed. Did it require more support than Anna expected? Research studies have investigated the psychological effects of transitions, such as career changes, relocations, or relationship endings. These studies consistently highlight the importance of social support in fostering resilience and promoting well-being. For instance, research has shown that individuals with strong social networks are better able to cope with stress and adapt to change. Studies also emphasize the role of mindfulness in managing stress and promoting emotional regulation during periods of transition. How can these findings inform our approach to re-entry? Re-entry shock, or reverse culture shock, can occur after a period of intense immersion in a different environment or way of life. This can manifest as feeling alienated, misunderstood, or overwhelmed by the return to normalcy. Symptoms can include difficulty connecting with old friends, feeling a sense of disconnect from familiar surroundings, or experiencing a loss of identity. Strategies for coping with these challenges can include seeking support from others who have had similar experiences, practicing self-care activities such as exercise and meditation, and finding ways to integrate the lessons learned during the period of imbalance into one's daily life. Are there ways to mitigate the impact of re-entry shock before it occurs? It's also worth noting the influence of personality factors in the re-entry process. Some individuals may be drawn to seeking ever more imbalances, perpetually seeking novelty and excitement. Others may cling rigidly to the new balance they've established, fearing any change that might disrupt their newfound stability. How can we cultivate a flexible mindset that allows us to embrace both stability and change? LII. Long-term wisdom. A life in constant calibration. To summarize, course correction is not a one-time event, but an ongoing process of self-assessment and adjustment that is essential for maintaining balance and well-being. It requires a commitment to self-reflection, re-prioritization, boundary setting, and seeking support. It's a constant calibration, not a destination. By embracing this approach, we can navigate the inevitable ups and downs of life with greater resilience and grace. Ultimately, the goal of seeking transcendent experiences is not simply to escape from reality, but to gain insights and perspectives that can help us live more meaningful and fulfilling lives. By integrating these experiences into balanced lives, we can move beyond fleeting moments of bliss and create lasting change in our lives and the world. However, our growth should not be a selfish act. How can all of this knowledge be used to lead a more ethical life, to better support the well-being of society, and to contribute to something larger than ourselves? As we approach the conclusion of this exploration, we will consider the ultimate implications of transcendent experiences and how they can shape our understanding of what it means to live a truly meaningful life. LII. From insight to action. Defining ethical living. If transcendent experiences offer glimpses of interconnectedness and deeper meaning, how can we translate these insights into tangible actions that shape our daily lives? Ethical living emerges as the practical manifestation of transcendent experiences, bridging the gap between fleeting moments of expanded awareness and sustained commitment to personal and societal well-being. It's more than just a feeling. It's the active pursuit of a life aligned with values revealed or reinforced during those moments. A fleeting feeling of interconnectedness during meditation might inspire consistent actions that promote social justice and environmental sustainability. But how does one move beyond the initial inspiration to embody these values in a consistent and meaningful way? Ethical living encompasses not only individual choices, but also a dedication to fostering a more just and compassionate world for everyone. It extends beyond personal morality to encompass social responsibility. It requires a shift in perspective, viewing oneself as an integral part of a larger web of relationships and recognizing the impact of one's actions on others and the planet. Ethical living is about doing what's right, even when it's difficult or unpopular. But is it merely doing what feels good, or does it require a more rigorous framework? Ethical living demands continuous self-reflection, heightened self-awareness, and a readiness to confront one's own biases and assumptions. It's not a static destination, but an ongoing journey of moral development. It calls for a willingness to question ingrained beliefs, challenge societal norms, and examine the underlying motivations behind one's actions. Ethical living isn't about blindly following a set of rules, but about cultivating a way of being that is guided by compassion, empathy, and a commitment to justice. But how can we ensure that our compassion is not clouded by our own prejudices? Ethical living isn't about attaining an impossible state of perfection. Instead, it embodies a conscious commitment to making positive choices and actively contributing to the well-being of others, even amidst imperfection. It recognizes that we are all flawed beings, capable of both great good and great harm. It's about striving to minimize harm, maximize good, and learn from our mistakes. Perfection is not the goal, but what then is a worthy target? LIV. Pillars of ethical action. Frameworks for decision-making. If ethical living is a journey, what are the compasses that can guide us? Virtue ethics offers one such compass, focusing on the cultivation of moral character and the development of virtues such as honesty, compassion, and courage. It emphasizes the importance of being a good person, rather than simply doing the right thing. Aristotle, for instance, argued that virtues are cultivated through practice and habit, becoming ingrained in our character over time. But how do we decide which virtues to prioritize and how to apply them in complex situations? Utilitarianism provides another framework, emphasizing the maximization of overall happiness and well-being for the greatest number of people. It involves weighing the potential consequences of different actions and choosing the one that will produce the most overall happiness. Jeremy Bentham, a key figure in utilitarianism, believed that actions should be judged based on their ability to promote pleasure and minimize pain. However, can the happiness of the majority justify the suffering of a few? Deontology offers a third perspective, emphasizing the importance of following universal moral principles and respecting the inherent dignity and rights of all individuals. It involves adhering to rules or principles, regardless of the consequences. Immanuel Kant, a prominent deontologist, argued that moral duties are absolute and should be followed without exception. Yet, can rigid adherence to rules ever be detrimental to individual cases? Each ethical framework has limitations and potential biases. Utilitarianism, for example, can lead to the oppression of minorities if the happiness of the majority is prioritized above all else. Deontology can be too rigid and inflexible in certain situations, failing to account for the complexities of real-world dilemmas. Virtue ethics can be subjective and culturally biased, lacking clear guidelines for resolving conflicts between competing virtues. Navigating these limitations requires critical thinking and contextual awareness in ethical decision-making. So, how do we choose the right framework, and how do we balance them against each other? LV. Ethics in action. Case studies of principled lives. How do these ethical frameworks translate into real-world action? Consider the story of Aaron Feuerstein, the owner of Malden Mills, who famously continued to pay his employees after a devastating fire destroyed his factory in 1995. Feuerstein's actions, driven by a sense of responsibility to his workers and community, exemplify ethical leadership in the face of adversity. But wasn't this an irrational business decision, driven more by emotion than reason? Whistleblowers often demonstrate moral courage and ethical leadership by exposing misconduct in organizations, despite potential personal and professional repercussions. Consider the case of Sharon Watkins, who alerted Enron's CEO to accounting irregularities before the company's collapse. Watkins' actions, while initially dismissed, ultimately helped to bring the company's fraudulent practices to light. However, a whistleblower is always motivated by pure altruism, or can they be driven by personal grievances? Ethical consumerism also plays a role in promoting social and environmental justice. By choosing to buy fair trade coffee, supporting local farmers, or investing in socially responsible companies, individuals can align their purchasing decisions with their values. The Body Shop, for example, has long been committed to ethical sourcing and environmental sustainability, demonstrating that businesses can be both profitable and socially responsible. Yet, does ethical consumerism truly make a difference, or is it merely a feel-good exercise that has little impact on systemic issues? Personality also impacts ethical action. How does a highly agreeable person, who seeks to avoid conflict, effectively confront unethical behavior? Or how does an introverted individual connect with and mobilize communities to champion social justice? These case studies illustrate the complex interplay between personal values, ethical frameworks, and real-world action. But how can we cultivate these qualities in ourselves and others? LVI. Living ethically, changing society. Synthesis and steps forward. What then have we learned about the path of ethical living? Integrating transcendent experiences into daily actions requires a commitment to creating a more just and compassionate world. Ethical living necessitates a synthesis of personal responsibility, balanced living, and ethical action. It challenges us to move beyond fleeting moments of insight and actively embody our values in all aspects of our lives. But is this a realistic goal, or is it an idealistic fantasy? The challenges and complexities of ethical decision-making demand ongoing reflection, self-awareness, and a willingness to learn and grow. There are no easy answers. Ethical dilemmas often involve competing values, conflicting interests, and uncertain outcomes. Navigating these complexities requires humility, empathy, and a commitment to seeking truth and justice, even when it is uncomfortable. How can we cultivate these qualities in a world that often rewards selfishness and expediency? Creating supportive communities and networks of like-minded individuals can provide encouragement, guidance, and accountability on the path of ethical living. Joining a local activist group, volunteering for a social justice organization, or connecting with other ethically minded individuals online can provide a sense of belonging, purpose, and shared commitment. But how can we ensure that these communities are truly inclusive and welcoming to all? Now that we've explored the path of ethical living, how can we use our experiences of transcendence and ethical living to inspire others and create a more just and sustainable world for all? How can we translate our personal transformations into collective action? As we move towards the conclusion of this exploration, let's consider how we can create a ripple effect of positive change in our communities and beyond. And how can the ethical standards that were established here be applied to future problems that we did not yet foresee? How, then, can we translate our personal transformations into collective action? And how can these ethical standards be applied to future problems that we did not yet foresee? It begins with the understanding that society is, in many ways, a reflection of our collective consciousness, an external manifestation of our shared values, beliefs, and behaviors. Ethical living, therefore, extends beyond the individual realm to encompass societal transformation, and society becomes another aspect of the self. Are we not, in effect, projecting our own inner state onto the world around us? Just as an individual's shadow can manifest in destructive behaviors, so too can a society's shadow emerge in the form of injustice, inequality, and environmental degradation. This is where Jung's concept of the collective unconscious becomes particularly relevant. Individual ethical actions, when multiplied across a population, contribute to a broader shift in societal values and norms, tapping into the archetypal energies that shape our collective experience. This collective energy is what allows for the integration of the transcendent with the mundane. But where does one begin when there are so many injustices? The areas of society that can be impacted by ethical living are vast and interconnected. Social justice demands that we address systemic inequalities based on race, gender, class, and other factors, ensuring that all individuals have equal opportunities to thrive. Environmental sustainability requires that we protect the planet's resources for future generations, mitigating the effects of climate change and promoting responsible stewardship of the Earth. Economic equality calls for a more equitable distribution of wealth and resources, reducing poverty and ensuring that everyone has access to basic needs. Political reform necessitates a more democratic and transparent system of governance, free from corruption and undue influence. These are grand and perhaps overwhelming problems. Is there a way to make them more manageable? While individual ethical choices are important, they are most effective when combined with collective action and systemic change. Individual acts of kindness and compassion can make a difference in the lives of those around us, but they are often insufficient to address the root causes of societal problems. Take, for example, the issue of food insecurity. Donating to a food bank is a compassionate act, but it does not address the underlying issues of poverty, unemployment, and lack of access to affordable food. Meaningful change requires collective action, such as advocating for policies that support living wages, affordable housing, and access to healthy food options. But how do we spark that collective action? Transcendent experiences often involve increased feelings of compassion and empathy. This can motivate action towards positive change. Individuals who have experienced a sense of interconnectedness and unity may be more likely to become involved in social justice movements, environmental activism, or other forms of collective action. This is why meditation retreats and psychedelic experiences can sometimes inspire a desire to serve a cause larger than oneself. The important part, however, is the transformation of experience into action. But is this transformation always positive? Mahatma Gandhi offers a powerful example of an individual who was inspired by transcendent experiences to create positive societal change. Gandhi's philosophy of nonviolent resistance, rooted in his Hindu spiritual beliefs, played a key role in India's struggle for independence from British rule. His unwavering commitment to truth, justice, and compassion inspired millions to join his movement, ultimately leading to the end of colonial rule. Gandhi believed that the means were as important as the ends, arguing that violence could never be used to achieve a just outcome. Gandhi writes, "Means are, after all, everything. As the means, so the end." But can nonviolence be effective in the face of extreme oppression? Martin Luther King Jr.'s leadership of the civil rights movement in the United States also demonstrates the transformative power of transcendent experiences. King's spiritual beliefs, deeply rooted in his Christian faith, shaped his vision of a beloved community, where all individuals are treated with dignity and respect. He drew upon the teachings of Jesus and the philosophy of nonviolent resistance to challenge racial segregation and discrimination, ultimately leading to landmark civil rights legislation. King's concept of the beloved community envisioned a society where poverty, hunger, and homelessness no longer exist, and where all individuals have equal opportunities to thrive. But can such a community ever truly be achieved? Environmental activists and organizations are often inspired by a sense of interconnectedness and reverence for nature to protect the planet and promote sustainability. Groups like the Sierra Club and Greenpeace are motivated by a deep concern for the well-being of the Earth and its inhabitants. They advocate for policies that protect endangered species, reduce pollution, and mitigate the effects of climate change. Many environmental activists describe experiencing a sense of awe and wonder when connecting with nature, which strengthens their commitment to protecting the environment. John Muir, the founder of the Sierra Club, famously wrote, "The mountains are calling, and I must go." But how can we reconcile our need for economic development with the need to protect the environment? It should be noted that transcendental experiences are not required to seek change. To suggest Such a claim would be to imply that such change is impossible and to delegitimize the efforts of people who have not experienced them. However, profound events can alter individuals. Many people spend their entire lives without having an experience that shapes their values. Scaling up ethical living and creating meaningful societal change presents numerous challenges. Social, political, and economic systems are complex and often resistant to change. Overcoming systemic inequality, corporate greed, and political corruption can seem like an insurmountable task. The challenges are so great that many people find themselves disillusioned, questioning if the world is beyond hope. How, then, can individuals and communities amplify the impact of ethical action? Strategies for amplifying the impact of ethical action include building coalitions, advocating for policy changes, supporting grassroots movements, and using technology to mobilize and organize. Building coalitions involves working with diverse groups of people who share common goals, even if they have different perspectives or approaches. Advocating for policy changes requires engaging with elected officials and policymakers to promote laws and regulations that support ethical living. Supporting grassroots movements involves providing resources and support to local organizations that are working to address social and environmental problems. Using technology to mobilize and organize can involve using social media, online petitions, and other tools to raise awareness and engage people in collective action. Social media has facilitated activism and social change, but it also has downsides, such as echo chambers and polarization. Can these negative aspects be overcome? Working towards societal change can be emotionally draining and discouraging. It is important to acknowledge the potential for discouragement and burnout, and to prioritize self-care, community support, and celebrating small victories along the way. Setting realistic goals, practicing mindfulness, and seeking support from others can help to maintain motivation and prevent burnout. It is also important to remember that change takes time and that even small actions can have a ripple effect. But is there a point when we should accept defeat and focus on our own well-being? By aligning our lives with our values and working together towards a common vision, we can create a world that reflects the highest ideals of humanity. A world where everyone has access to basic needs, where communities are thriving and resilient, and where the environment is protected and valued. A future where ethical living is the norm and society is organized around principles of compassion, justice, and sustainability. But how can we each contribute to creating this future? And what steps can we take today to begin living more ethically and working towards a more just and sustainable world? This question will transition us to the conclusion, where all topics will be summarized and viewers encouraged to act. Translating transcendental experiences into tangible societal improvements presents a formidable challenge, akin to capturing the ephemeral beauty of a dream and transforming it into a blueprint for reality. How do we bridge the chasm between fleeting moments of unity, interconnectedness, and profound compassion, and the often gritty realities of social, economic, and political life? It is one thing to feel compassion for the homeless, but quite another to volunteer at a shelter, advocate for affordable housing policies, or donate consistently to organizations that provide long-term support. But are these intentions and actions enough? The journey from transcendental insight to effective action is fraught with potential misinterpretations and distortions. A superficial understanding of oneness, for example, might lead to ignoring real differences in power dynamics within society, masking injustices under a veneer of spiritual bypassing. A misguided focus on inner peace might preclude addressing the very real struggles of those facing systemic oppression. One may feel as if such spiritual bypass is justified when they are living in alignment with the universe, but as they seclude themselves, the injustices will grow as they remain unaddressed. The desire for a better world can easily be corrupted, and it becomes another person's problem. But can transcendental intentions ever justify inaction? Effective strategies for translating transcendental values into societal actions demand critical thinking, evidence-based decision-making, and robust collaboration with diverse stakeholders. Transcendental experiences can undoubtedly provide a powerful motivation for change, a deep-seated yearning for a more just and compassionate world. However, this yearning must be grounded in reality, informed by sound judgment, and tempered by a healthy dose of humility. We must be wary of imposing our own values or visions onto others, recognizing that true societal transformation requires a collective effort, not a top-down imposition of spiritual ideals. But how do we ensure a proper balance is struck? Ethical business practices offer a concrete arena for translating transcendental values into societal well-being. Businesses can prioritize fair labor standards, ensuring that workers receive a living wage and are treated with dignity and respect. They can embrace environmental sustainability, reducing their carbon footprint, conserving resources, and investing in renewable energy. Responsible corporate governance can promote transparency, accountability, and ethical decision-making at all levels of the organization. These actions transcend the mere pursuit of profit, reflecting a deeper commitment to creating value for all stakeholders. But is there any way to measure this commitment, or is it just marketing? Education, too, can be infused with transcendental values, fostering critical thinking, empathy, creativity, and a sense of global citizenship. Educational programs can promote social-emotional learning, helping students develop self-awareness, self-regulation, and interpersonal skills. Mindfulness practices can cultivate present-moment awareness and reduce stress, promoting a more compassionate and focused learning environment. Intercultural understanding can broaden students' perspectives and foster appreciation for diversity. However, this education can be skewed in one direction or another, depending on who is teaching it and who is in charge of the institutions. Is it possible to avoid cultural biases completely? The application of transcendental values to healthcare can promote holistic well-being, patient-centered care, and equitable access to healthcare services. Healthcare systems can prioritize preventative care, mental health services, and addressing the social determinants of health, such as poverty, food insecurity, and lack of access to education and employment. Holistic approaches can integrate mind-body practices, such as yoga, meditation, and acupuncture, to promote overall health and well-being. But can such a broad, all-encompassing system truly meet the needs of individuals, or would it collapse under its own weight? Community development projects can be guided by transcendental values to improve quality of life, with a focus on inclusivity, sustainability, and empowerment. Community gardens can provide access to fresh, healthy food, promote social interaction, and foster a sense of connection to nature. Affordable housing initiatives can ensure that everyone has access to safe and stable housing, reducing homelessness and promoting economic opportunity. Renewable energy projects can create jobs, reduce pollution, and promote energy independence. But how do you convince everyone to buy into these ideas? Consider the example of a non-profit organization dedicated to providing affordable housing, job training, and healthcare services to low-income communities. Guided by a deep commitment to compassion and social justice, the organization not only provides essential services, but also empowers community members to become agents of change in their own lives. They work to engage with the people they are trying to help, rather than acting as if they know best, which is important for the success of any project. However, non-profits face their own issues. How does such an organization deal with internal conflicts and disagreements between the staff and the volunteers? Consider, too, the impact of leaders who have used their platforms to advocate for ethical and sustainable policies, inspired by a sense of interconnectedness and responsibility to future generations. Jacinda Ardern, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, often invoked the concept of kaishiakitanga, a Maori term referring to guardianship and protection of the environment, when advocating for climate action and sustainable development. She sought to implement policies that reflected a long-term vision of well-being for both the planet and its people. What are the limitations and challenges of applying transcendental principles within the often compromised world of politics? Community-based initiatives addressing social and environmental challenges, fostering resilience, and promoting collective well-being are powerful examples of transcendental action. Grassroots movements promoting local food systems, renewable energy, or restorative justice practices often operate from a deep sense of interconnectedness with the earth and a commitment to building more just and equitable communities. Restorative justice practices, for instance, seek to repair harm and rebuild relationships rather than simply punishing offenders, reflecting a transcendental value of compassion and reconciliation. But can grassroots movements truly scale up and create lasting change, or are they destined to remain small and localized? It's crucial to acknowledge that organizations and initiatives seeking to translate transcendental values into societal improvements often face significant challenges and setbacks. Nonprofits may struggle with funding, staff burnout, or internal conflicts. Political leaders may encounter resistance from entrenched interests or face criticism for being too idealistic. Grassroots movements may struggle to gain traction or sustain momentum. These challenges highlight the importance of persistence, adaptability, and learning from failures. One such failure can be found in the story of the One Laptop Per Child project, which was designed to transform education in developing nations. However, it was ultimately deemed to be a failure. What can we learn from this failure? In essence, the effective integration of transcendental values into societal action requires a delicate balance between reason and emotion, facts and values. We must combine the insights of transcendental experiences with the rigor of critical thinking, the discipline of evidence-based decision-making, and the humility of recognizing our own limitations. Only then can we hope to create a more just, compassionate, and sustainable world, inspired by the highest ideals of humanity and grounded in practical action. However, such an achievement does not come easily. How can we maintain our focus on the big picture when we are mired in the details of day-to-day challenges? Potential pitfalls exist. We might oversimplify complex issues, impose our own values on others, or become disillusioned by setbacks. We might assume that our own transcendental experience is the only valid one, leading to intolerance or judgment of others. These are dangers that must be vigilantly avoided. This, again, underscores the importance of shadow work, which allows one to understand and account for the ways that one's own biases may play a part in their transcendental experiences. In fact, Jung writes, "Everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is." How, then, do we avoid such pitfalls? The long-term vision of a society grounded in transcendental values is a world where everyone has access to basic needs, where communities are thriving and resilient, and where the environment is protected and valued. It is a future where ethical living is the norm and society is organized around principles of compassion, justice, and sustainability. Achieving this vision requires a profound shift in consciousness, a collective awakening to our interconnectedness and our responsibility to one another and to the planet. But how can we contribute to realizing that vision in our own lives and communities? This is a journey that demands ongoing commitment, unwavering dedication, and a willingness to embrace both the light and the shadow. As we move towards the conclusion, we will explore the importance of continual growth and the practical steps we can take to cultivate a more transcendent and ethical life. We have yet to discuss the importance of maintaining and building upon a long-term vision that will support a world where all can thrive. Following a transcendental experience, how do we avoid merely returning to our old patterns and habits, allowing the profound insights to fade into distant memories. Continual growth is an active and sustained commitment to learning, evolving, and expanding one's understanding of self, others, and the world. It is not a rigid obligation, but a natural outflowing of a truly integrated transcendental experience. One cannot simply rest on the laurels of a single, transformative moment, for the feeling of oneness with the universe should not be a temporary emotional state, but an ongoing drive to connect with and care for all beings, an ever-present impetus for positive change and deeper understanding. Continual growth is an iterative process of self-reflection, experimentation, and adaptation, requiring humility, curiosity, and a willingness to embrace uncertainty. It is a journey of constant refinement, where past experiences inform present actions, and present actions shape future possibilities. One might need to experiment with different spiritual practices or lifestyle changes, assessing which of those are helpful and discarding those that are not. This requires a willingness to step outside one's comfort zone, to challenge long-held beliefs, and to embrace the discomfort that often accompanies true transformation. Ultimately, this is a lifelong journey, one where the destination is less important than the path itself. Crucially, continual growth is not about achieving perfection, but about striving to live in alignment with one's values and contributing to the well-being of others. It's about making incremental improvements, sustained over time, that gradually transform one's character and impact on the world. One doesn't need to become a saint, radiating an impossible aura of perfection, but to embrace the messy, imperfect reality of being human, striving each day to embody one's highest ideals. It is about finding a balance between self-improvement and self-acceptance, recognizing that both are necessary for genuine growth. Humility serves as a foundational element of continual growth, enabling individuals to acknowledge their limitations, accept feedback, and remain open to new perspectives. One must acknowledge the limits of one's knowledge and be willing to learn from others, regardless of their background or perceived status. A know-it-all cannot grow, for they are already convinced that they possess all the answers. This also requires a willingness to admit when one is wrong, to apologize for mistakes, and to learn from failures. Humility allows us to see ourselves and the world with greater clarity, unclouded by ego or pride. As Carl Jung writes, "The shoe that fits one person pinches another." There is no recipe for living that suits all cases. Curiosity acts as a driving force behind continual growth, motivating individuals to explore new ideas, challenge existing assumptions, and seek out diverse experiences. One must remain open to new experiences, even if they are uncomfortable or unfamiliar, for it is often in these uncharted territories that we discover the most profound insights. Routine is the enemy of growth, for it lulls us into complacency, preventing us from questioning the status quo or seeking out new possibilities. Curiosity fuels our desire to learn, to explore, and to understand the world around us, transforming us from passive observers into active participants in our own evolution. Action serves as the bridge between intention and impact, enabling individuals to translate their insights and values into tangible actions that benefit themselves and others. Meditation might bring feelings of peace and interconnectedness, but it's the actions taken afterward that translate these insights into positive change. It's one thing to feel compassion for those suffering, but quite another to actively work to alleviate their suffering. It requires a willingness to step outside one's comfort zone, to take risks, and to persevere in the face of challenges. In essence, action is the catalyst that transforms potential into reality. How, then, can someone be truly responsible with their experiences? The interplay between ethical action and continual growth is important. If one seeks to be ethical, then one must continually grow, lest their understanding of the world stagnates. The world is ever-changing, and one's ethical framework must adapt to it. If one ceases growing, then one's ethical compass will fail. Consider the anonymized example of someone who experienced a profound spiritual awakening and then dedicated their life to social justice causes. This individual, once consumed by personal ambition, now tirelessly advocates for marginalized communities, driven by a deep sense of compassion and a commitment to creating a more equitable world. They actively engage in grassroots organizing, policy advocacy, and community education, using their newfound awareness to uplift others and challenge systemic injustices. However, not everyone is able to, or even willing to, make such a dramatic shift in their lives. What common roadblocks prevent individuals from embracing continual growth? Common roadblocks to continual growth include fear of failure, resistance to change, lack of self-discipline, and the tendency to become complacent. The desire to stay comfortable and avoid challenges can be a powerful impediment, preventing individuals from stepping outside their comfort zones and embracing new opportunities. Fear of failure can paralyze us, preventing us from taking the necessary risks to achieve our goals. Procrastination, too, can derail our progress as we delay taking action and allow opportunities to slip away. Perhaps a personality factor, such as fear of new things, may prevent people from seeking continual growth. How, then, can we overcome these obstacles? Strategies for overcoming these roadblocks include setting realistic goals, practicing self-compassion, building a supportive community, and celebrating small victories. Breaking down large goals into smaller, manageable steps can make the process less overwhelming and more achievable. Seeking support from friends or mentors can provide encouragement and guidance along the way. Acknowledging progress, no matter how small, can reinforce positive habits and motivate us to continue striving. Remember, growth is not a linear process, but a journey with its own ups and downs, with twists and turns. In essence, continual growth hinges on commitment, self-reflection, experimentation, and adaptation, all of which are vital for long-term success. It is not a passive process, but an active and intentional pursuit, requiring conscious effort and unwavering dedication. Furthermore, it is inextricably linked to ethical living, balanced living, and personal responsibility, as we seek to align our actions with our values and contribute to the well-being of others. Ethical living, balanced living, and personal responsibility. This is the heart of this section. The potential for continual growth to create a positive feedback loop is significant, as each new insight and accomplishment fuels further learning and expansion. Continual growth is not a linear process, but an upward spiral, where each cycle builds upon the previous one, leading to greater understanding, fulfillment, and impact. It's a virtuous circle, where positive actions reinforce positive outcomes, creating a ripple effect that extends far beyond our own lives. This is a concept of the potential rewards of continual growth. As we approach the conclusion, it's important to reflect on the ultimate purpose of seeking transcendent experiences and how continual growth can help individuals live more meaningful, fulfilling, and impactful lives. Such experiences are not meant to be isolated events, but catalysts for lasting transformation, guiding us towards a more authentic and purposeful existence. They are a means to an end, not an end in themselves, and their true value lies in the lasting impact they have on our lives and the lives of others. Ultimately, these are but small pieces of a much larger puzzle. How can we cultivate a sustained commitment to continual growth in our own lives and inspire others to do the same, creating a world where learning, evolving, and expanding are valued and celebrated? As we move toward the conclusion, we will tie all these points together. Is the path of continual growth a smooth, unobstructed highway? In reality, encountering barriers is as inevitable as the rising and setting of the sun. The real question, then, is not whether we will face obstacles, but how we choose to respond to them. These barriers, far from being signs of failure, can be valuable learning opportunities, necessary challenges that ultimately shape us into more resilient and resourceful individuals. These impediments manifest in diverse forms, ranging from internal resistance and external obstacles to unforeseen circumstances that disrupt our carefully laid plans. Understanding the multifaceted nature of these barriers is crucial for navigating the path of continual growth with wisdom and effectiveness. Internal resistance, for example, might manifest as fear of failure, self-doubt, or limiting beliefs that hold us back from pursuing our goals. External obstacles could include a lack of resources, unsupportive environments, or systemic inequalities that create barriers to opportunity. And unforeseen circumstances, such as unexpected life events or global crises, can throw us off course and force us to adapt to new realities. One must ask themselves, which of these are they most prone to? Importantly, not all barriers are created equal, and discerning between temporary setbacks and fundamental limitations is an essential skill. While some obstacles can and should be overcome with perseverance and ingenuity, others may serve as signals that it's time to pivot in a different direction. Continuing the analogy from the previous section, we can imagine we are climbing up a mountain. Sometimes we must go back down a bit to find another path forward. Recognizing when to push through and when to change course requires a deep understanding of ourselves, our capabilities, and the specific context in which we find ourselves. Is it stubbornness or true grit? What are the most common internal barriers that impede continual growth? Fear of failure, with its insidious whispers of inadequacy, can paralyze us before we even begin, while perfectionism, with its impossible standards, can lead to procrastination and self-criticism. Self-doubt, like a persistent inner critic, erodes our confidence and undermines our efforts. Limiting beliefs, often rooted in past experiences or societal conditioning, constrain our potential and prevent us from exploring new possibilities. And resistance to change, fueled by a desire for comfort and familiarity, keeps us stuck in old patterns and prevents us from embracing new opportunities. All these internal obstacles may act as psychological roadblocks, diverting us from the path of self-discovery and transformation. A person might begin to question, how have these forces acted on me in the past? What are the most pervasive external barriers that hinder continual growth? A lack of resources, whether financial, social, or educational, can create significant obstacles to opportunity, limiting access to the tools and support needed to thrive. Unsupportive environments, characterized by negativity, criticism, or a lack of encouragement, can stifle our motivation and undermine our efforts. Systemic inequalities, based on factors such as race, gender, or socioeconomic status, create unfair advantages for some while erecting barriers for others. And societal expectations, often driven by cultural norms or media portrayals, can pressure us to conform to narrow definitions of success, stifling our individuality and creativity. Consider, have any of these forces acted on me? These internal and external barriers do not exist in isolation. They often interact and reinforce each other, creating complex challenges that require multifaceted solutions. A person who has internalized negative stereotypes about their abilities, an internal barrier, may be less likely to pursue educational opportunities, an external barrier, perpetuating a cycle of disadvantage. Similarly, someone who lacks access to affordable therapy, an external barrier, may struggle to overcome limiting beliefs or self-doubt, internal barriers, hindering their personal growth. Addressing these intertwined challenges requires a holistic approach that considers both the individual and the systemic factors at play. It is important to ask, what happens when internal and external pressures are acting in concert? Consider the anonymized case of a woman who overcame a debilitating fear of public speaking to become a community leader and advocate for social change. Initially, she was paralyzed by anxiety at the thought of speaking in front of an audience, haunted by past experiences of ridicule and criticism. However, she recognized that her fear was preventing her from pursuing her passion for social justice and making a meaningful contribution to her community. She sought professional help, joined a public speaking group, and practiced diligently, gradually building her confidence and skills. Over time, she not only overcame her fear, but also became a powerful and inspiring voice for change. What lessons might be learned from her story? Think of Malala Yousafzai, who continued to advocate for girls' education despite being shot by the Taliban. Her unwavering commitment to her cause, even in the face of extreme adversity, exemplifies the power of resilience and determination. Or consider the entrepreneurs who launched successful businesses despite facing financial hardship, navigating systemic barriers, and defying societal expectations. These real-world scenarios demonstrate that with courage, creativity, and a steadfast belief in one's purpose, seemingly insurmountable obstacles can be overcome. But did any of these ethical quandaries ever lead to some level of regret? How do different ethical frameworks inform our approach to overcoming barriers? Someone using a virtue ethics framework might focus on cultivating courage, perseverance, and integrity in the face of adversity, striving to embody these virtues in their actions and decisions. Someone using a utilitarian framework might weigh the potential benefits and risks of different strategies for overcoming a barrier, seeking to maximize overall well-being and minimize harm. And someone using a deontology framework might adhere to a set of moral principles or duties, regardless of the consequences, guided by a sense of what is right and just. Ultimately, ethical decision-making is essential for navigating challenging situations with integrity and purpose. But how might one maintain ethical conduct in the face of adversity? In summary, the process of continual growth is a challenging but rewarding journey, marked by inevitable encounters with barriers of all kinds. Understanding the nature of these barriers, developing effective strategies for overcoming them, and drawing upon internal and external resources are essential for navigating this path with wisdom and resilience. Furthermore, these obstacles are not insurmountable, and the process of overcoming them can lead to significant growth and transformation, revealing hidden strengths and helping us clarify what truly matters to us. What unseen advantages might one gain by facing adversity? Perhaps barriers are merely opportunities for deeper self-discovery and alignment with one's values. The obstacles we face can reveal hidden strengths and help us clarify what truly matters to us, forcing us to confront our limitations and discover our untapped potential. Is it possible, then, that the seeking of a transcendent experience becomes, itself, a barrier to further growth, or is chasing enlightenment ultimately prevent its achievement? As we move towards the conclusion, we must now recognize the value of continual growth, reiterating the importance of commitment, self-reflection, ethical action, and personal responsibility. We will explore the potential pitfalls of seeking transcendent experiences without addressing the underlying barriers, and how integrating these insights can lead to a more authentic, meaningful, and impactful life. Is it possible that the very yearning for transcendent experience can paradoxically impede its attainment? One of the most fascinating and often misunderstood aspects of the spiritual journey is the seeker's trap, a phenomenon where the relentless pursuit of enlightenment or heightened states of consciousness becomes a barrier to genuine, sustained personal growth. Much like the pursuit of happiness itself, the more directly one chases after transcendent experiences, the more elusive they often become. The desire for transcendence, while seemingly noble, can easily morph into an ego-driven pursuit, fixated on achieving a particular state or feeling rather than embracing the present moment and engaging fully with the richness of everyday life. This quest for a specific outcome can become a subtle form of spiritual bypassing, where individuals use spiritual concepts and practices to avoid dealing with difficult emotions, unresolved issues, or the mundane realities of human existence. It is important to emphasize that this is not a condemnation of seeking, but a call for self-awareness and a balanced approach. Much like the Buddhist concept of detachment, The key lies in cultivating equanimity and non-attachment to specific outcomes, remaining open to whatever arises in the present moment without clinging to preconceived notions of what transcendence should feel like. The distinction between actively seeking and passively being open to such experiences is paramount. Furthermore, the ego can subtly hijack the quest for transcendence, transforming it into a quest for status, validation, or a sense of control. Individuals might seek out transcendent experiences to feel superior to others, to prove their spiritual worth, or to escape from their everyday problems. They might boast about their mystical insights or spiritual accomplishments, subtly seeking recognition and admiration from others. Consider, for example, someone who frequently shares their psychedelic experiences on social media, carefully curating an image of themselves as a spiritual guru or enlightened being. Or consider someone who attends workshop after workshop, but whose relationships remain in tatters. Expectations also play a significant role in hindering genuine experiences. Preconceived notions about what transcendence should feel like can prevent individuals from fully embracing the present moment. A person may have had a transcendental experience in the past and chases that dragon, leading to attachment and a sense of dissatisfaction when future experiences don't measure up. Such individuals may become overly critical of their experiences, constantly comparing them to past peaks and judging them as inadequate. This prevents them from fully appreciating the subtle beauty and wonder of everyday life. Some personalities, such as those prone to addiction or obsessive behaviors, may be more drawn to chase transcendental experiences, turning a potentially enriching pursuit into a destructive cycle. Consider the anonymized case of an individual who became deeply involved in a spiritual cult, drawn in by the promise of enlightenment and a sense of belonging. Initially, they found the teachings and practices to be transformative, experiencing moments of profound insight and connection. However, over time, they became increasingly dependent on the group's leader, surrendering their autonomy and critical thinking skills. The leader, exploiting their followers' desire for transcendence, manipulated them into making financial sacrifices, cutting off contact with their families, and engaging in unethical behaviors. Ultimately, the individual suffered significant emotional and financial harm, realizing they had fallen victim to the seeker's trap, prioritizing the pursuit of transcendence above their own well-being and ethical principles. What might this person have done differently? It is also useful to consider real-world scenarios where the pursuit of transcendence has led to harmful outcomes, such as involvement in exploitative spiritual communities, the adoption of extreme or dogmatic beliefs, or the justification of violence in the name of spiritual ideals. These examples highlight the importance of critical thinking, ethical discernment, and a healthy skepticism when navigating the spiritual landscape. We must also consider the concept of spiritual materialism, a tendency to accumulate spiritual knowledge, practices, or experiences as a way of bolstering the ego. A person might attend countless workshops and retreats, but fail to integrate the lessons learned into their daily life, or someone who boasts about their spiritual accomplishments, but lacks genuine compassion or humility. This individual is engaging in a subtle form of self-aggrandizement, using spiritual pursuits to inflate their sense of self-importance rather than cultivating genuine inner transformation. It is also useful to acknowledge how socio-economic and cultural factors can also play a role. Someone with more disposable income can more easily chase transcendence, and may even signal their transcendental achievements in social media posts that appear to be humble, but are in fact boasting. In essence, the seeker's trap underscores the importance of self-awareness, balanced living, ethical action, and continual growth. The pursuit of transcendence is not inherently bad, but it must be approached with caution and discernment. With this in mind, we can consider alternative approaches to seeking transcendent experience, such as cultivating mindfulness, practicing gratitude, engaging in acts of service, and connecting with nature. These practices can foster a deeper sense of connection, meaning, and purpose without requiring the pursuit of extraordinary experiences. But here is a question that they don't want you to ask yourself. Is the goal of seeking transcendental experience itself flawed? Should one seek instead to simply improve their ethical and responsible actions, and simply allow transcendental experiences to occur spontaneously or not at all? It is also important to offer viewers some comfort if they have not had a transcendental experience. This does not mean they are doing it wrong. The true impact of this video is measured not by your experience, but by your actions and approach to life. Transcendent experiences are just one tool among many to leading a fulfilling and ethical life. And as we move towards the conclusion, we must begin to synthesize the key points and practical ways forward to the path of enlightenment. In synthesizing our exploration, we find ourselves at a point where the multifaceted dimensions of transcendent experience converge. This is a point where we are meant to gather together transcendental concepts such as their intricate relationship to the human personality, the diverse practices employed to facilitate them, the inherent challenges of their integration into everyday life, the arduous journey through the dark night of the soul, the indispensable virtues of resilience and interdependence, the imperative of ethical living, the unyielding commitment to perpetual self-improvement, the inescapable presence of obstacles along the path, and finally, the paradoxical enigma of the seeker's trap. It is important to acknowledge how these concepts are not isolated entities, but are deeply interwoven threads in the vast tapestry of the human quest for meaning, purpose, and profound personal transformation. This exploration has been a journey into the depths of human consciousness, examining how transcendent experiences interweave with our personalities, our practices, and our ethical responsibilities. This is an effort that goes beyond a mere restatement of facts. It is meant to capture the ethereal essence of each concept, transcending simple definitions and venturing into the realms of deeper understanding. The ultimate goal is not just to understand the mechanics of transcendence, but to appreciate its profound significance in the human experience. But does a transcendental experience make you more human? Is the human experience not transcendental in itself? Recall that we began by posing the question, how can we understand and integrate transcendent experiences in a psychologically healthy and meaningful way? Now, having traversed through the intricate landscapes of the human psyche, we can appreciate that the answer is not a simple solution. Instead, the answer lies in recognizing the complex interplay of psychological factors, personal experiences, and ethical considerations. We have deepened our understanding of both the extraordinary potential and the inherent challenges that accompany the seeking and integrating of transcendent experiences. Initially, these experiences might have seemed like fleeting moments of altered consciousness. Now, we understand their potential as catalysts for profound personal growth, ethical refinement, and a deeper appreciation for the interconnectedness of all things. This journey has been a testament to the power of the human spirit to seek, to question, and to evolve. Perhaps the most profound transcendent experience lies not in a fleeting moment of altered consciousness, but in a sustained commitment to living ethically, responsibly, and compassionately in the present moment. It is in the ordinary, in the everyday, that the extraordinary reveals itself. Paradoxically, the more we chase after transcendence, the more elusive it becomes, like a mirage shimmering on the horizon. It is important to remember our discussion of the seeker's trap, where the relentless pursuit of spiritual experiences can become a barrier to genuine growth. Instead, the true path may lie in cultivating self-awareness, embracing the present moment, and acting with kindness and integrity in all our endeavors. Ultimately, transcendent experiences can serve as powerful catalysts, but true transformation is sustained by integrating these insights into the fabric of our daily lives. If we don't fully integrate these insights, then did we truly experience transcendence at all? Perhaps it's better named something else, a mirage. Therefore, let us translate the insights gained from this exploration into concrete actions, contributing to the betterment of ourselves, our communities, and the planet. Examine your own life with a critical eye, identifying areas where you can live more ethically, responsibly, and compassionately. Consider the impact of your choices on others, on the environment, and on future generations. Cultivate mindfulness in your daily activities, savoring the present moment and acting with intention. Engage in acts of service, reaching out to those in need and contributing to the greater good. Embrace the interconnectedness of all things, recognizing that your actions have far-reaching consequences. Perhaps the greatest contribution you can make is to live a life that embodies the values of compassion, justice, and sustainability, inspiring others to do the same. That concludes our exploration on the psychology of transcendent experience. Thank you for joining me on this journey of exploration.